7:30. The Board of Selectmen meeting for November 12th will come to order. Mr. Allen, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and greetings to all the members, everybody here in the audience, as well as watching at home. Tonight we have no invited guests, correct, Mrs. Reed? Which brings us to the approval of minutes. We have October 8th, October 22nd, and October 31st. Because the majority of the board seated here this evening was not on the board when these minutes of these meetings, they can only be accepted. They cannot be approved. So I would ask for a motion that the minutes be accepted into the record.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Mrs. Panetta?
I do have an adjustment to the October 8th minutes.
Okay.
We received in our packet, it was dated November 7th, from Michael J. Serino.
Right.
And where this adjustment would be put in, and just to let you know, Selectman Castanetti, myself, and Ms. Reed also watched the Vimeo just to make sure that this was correct.
Okay.
Okay? So where this adjustment is going to go, it is on page 3 of 5, after the first full paragraph where it says, "A gentleman requested to speak." What we'll put there is that the ambulance, a gentleman requested to speak. The chair stated, 1, the ambulance contract issue was not a public meeting. 2, the board would take it under consideration. And 3, to contact Wendy with any information he had, and we will look at it.
So, Mr. Castanetti, are you making the motion for just the October 8th minutes with the corrections? Just the
You can
October
do all three of them if you want, it makes no difference.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Mr. Castanetti moves, seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. October 22nd.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chairman, to accept to approve the minutes of October 22nd.
No, you're making a motion to accept.
Okay, I'll accept.
Okay.
And you're going to...
Seconded by the chair. Seconded by Mr. Castanetti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Madam
October
Chairman.
22nd, 7:30.
And I'll make the motion to accept the October 31st minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Mr. Castanetti moves to accept the October 31st minutes, seconded by Mr. Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
And Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes dated October 31st, 2013.
Okay. We just did that.
Oh, see how fast you are?
That's okay. It's like food. Okay. We have some correspondence here. We have a request from the Vineyard Church requesting permission to place a street banner on either the Essex Street or Main Street locations for the dates November 22nd through December 22nd. They're putting on a church Christmas presentation called Not Without You. Attached is the copy of the design review, and the banner will be in use until December 6th. They have given us a copy of the breakdown on various other banners that have been put in those locations. What are the wishes of the board?
Madam Chairman,
Mrs. Deva.
I would make a motion to approve the request of the Vineyard Community Church for a 3x20 banner to be hung per the regulations of the town of Saugus between the dates of November 22nd and December 22nd, according to their request.
Seconded by the chair. Is there further discussion? See. Yeah. Come up to the podium, please.
My first time, so I don't know how to respond. I did speak with Corey from Sachem Signs today, and he said that he's able to stretch our image to fit the 3 by 30. So we were going to do that, if that's okay. I know we put 3 by 20 in the letter.
Madam Chairman,
Mrs.
attached were the standard conditions, and I do not see a restriction on the size.
Right.
So I would again amend my motion to allow the 3 by 30. Are you Elizabeth?
I am Patty Hubbard, the pastor's wife.
Could you give your name and address just
Yes,
to our clerk?
it's
Thank
Patricia
you.
Hubbard, 411 Essex Street, Saugus, Mass.
So, Madam Chairman, I would like to change my motion slightly to reflect the 3 by 30 for the same dates, November 22nd through December 22nd, and with the standard conditions required by the town of Saugus.
Seconded by the chair. All those in favor again?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
You're
you.
all set.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Next in our correspondence, we have a letter forwarded to us by our clerk, and it is a rich of attachment, and I think that should be forwarded to legal counsel regarding Hilltop. Mr. Manager?
I'll make sure that happens. I'll make sure that happens, to pass that on to the legal counsel.
Okay.
Looks like it appears there's some sort of a lien, could involve, whatnot, but we want to protect our interest.
Sure. Do you have any questions, Mr. Allen? Anybody have any questions?
Talking about the Hilltop?
The Hilltop,
Did you
refer
skip-
to legal
Did you skip one
counsel.
on the agenda?
American Legion.
Okay.
It's all right.
Are you comfortable with the Hilltop being
I'm good with
That's
that.
fine,
That's
yeah.
fine.
referred to? Okay. Okay. Also, we have a communication from a Deborah Diane Faust of the American Legion, request for change of manager. Ms. Faust here. If you could state your name and address, please.
Deborah Dion Faust, 26 Mountain Avenue in Saugus.
Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Faust? I see the background information here is completed. Are there any motions that people want?
Madam Chairman, I can make the motion to grant the application for Deborah Dion Faust to be the new bar manager for the Saugus American Legion Post 210.
Seconded by the chair. Any further discussion?
Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Deborah?
I would be happy to support the motion. I would ask, though, that there is available training regarding alcohol. I believe it's called the TIPS program. Please forgive me if I've not said that correctly. And I would like to see that training be completed.
That's fine.
Thank you.
I would like to see it be completed, too.
Thank you.
Is there anything else anybody wants to add? What is the wish of the board? Motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Let it go, Deb.
Next on the agenda is the conduct of elected officials and municipal employees bylaw.
Madam Chairman, I'll withdraw my two amendments to the motion that was passed at the last meeting, pending the outcome of the vote at town meeting.
Mr. Castanetti makes a motion to withdraw, seconded by the chair. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Gone. Thank you, Mr. Castanetti. Mrs. Hatch?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Members of the board, congratulations on the outcome of the election. I'm here this evening, as I have presented to the board in the past, parcels that the town has initiated a lien, initiated a foreclosure action in the land court, and has received judgment for foreclosure. What is required under Massachusetts statute is that for a one-year period from the time of the foreclosure judgment, the former owner of the property is entitled to come back to the town of Saugus, request through myself and through the Board of Selectmen the ability to redeem that parcel and take ownership of that parcel, or in this case, parcels. There are 5 parcels involved this evening. One has a building on it. The other 4 are vacant lots that sort of comprise their subsidiary lot that the house and their yard is consisted of. In September 2009, we initiated the process to secure a lien on the property for unpaid real estate taxes. In March of 2012, we filed a motion in the land court for foreclosure judgment. That judgment was granted a year later. This past June, the former owners of the property came to me and asked what the process was to redeem, that they were interested in redeeming, and from then until just recently on October 28th, worked on financing and secured payment in order to redeem all 5 of those parcels. So in the memo and information that I provided to the board this evening is a familiar motion to some of you. And what I need the board to vote is to allow the foreclosure to be vacated, and the language is on that second page, should someone choose to make that motion. And it identifies each of the 5 parcels that are involved. 4 of them have a parcel ID because they're simply known as 0 Waverly Avenue on our record, so for clarity, I've identified their parcel ID. And I've stated the amount that they've paid and that they have paid all of their taxes, including the current fiscal year 14s, right up through the second quarter, all their water and sewer charges. So at this point, with this payment and approval from the board, they will be paid up to date. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to entertain.
Any questions from members of the board?
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Panetta?
It was since 2009 that did they run into financial difficulties and then decide that they wanted?
I think there was a death in the family,
Oh, I see.
and that contributed to it.
I see. With that said, if there's no other comments, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay, I'd like to read it verbatim from where she has
I
put
will.
forward.
I'd like to make a motion to allow the judgment for foreclosure dated March 27, 2013 to be vacated in title of the following properties: 62 Clifton Ave, 0 Waverly Avenue, F4-4-6, 0 Waverly Avenue, F4-5-2, 0 Waverly Avenue, F4-5-4, 0 Waverly Avenue, F4-6-2, be returned to its former owners as stated in the foreclosure judgment. This vote is based on payment received in the amount of $53,328.87 for outstanding fiscal 2010 through 2014 real estate taxes and water sewer charges, with all applicable interest, penalties, and fees.
Motion seconded. Seconded by the chair. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you. We have Sergeant Van Steensman. Request for holiday temporary traffic barriers.
Good evening. This is pretty standard. We do it every year. We're requesting for the barricades to be placed up on the Main Street overpass and the Essex Street overpass. Throughout the year, that tends to be a difficult area for traffic, especially during the rush hour. In the holidays, we see an increased problem there. People taking illegal lefts, it makes it an extremely dangerous situations. We know how busy the streets get during the holidays. So it's pretty standard. We do it every year, and it really does make a difference. It helps us to enforce those sections of road.
Thank you. A motion from members of the board?
Madam Chairman, if I could, just one question
Dever.
to Sergeant Van Steenberg. The dates that you wish to do this? Through what date?
It's generally the day after Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, I think they go out. Right before Thanksgiving.
And the ending date, Sergeant Van Steenberg?
It would be, I would say, to the day after the New Year.
Thank you. Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Dever?
I would make a motion to grant the request from the Saugus Police Department.
Seconded. Is there any further question? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. If I may ask the board to indulge me, I'm going to ask one person to be taken out of order. It's towards the end of the meeting, and that's Mr. Gene Decaro. Everybody okay with that? Thank you. Mr. Decaro.
For the record, Gene Decaro, 388 Central Street in Saugus. Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I rise to congratulate you on the election. And the only request I have is that this board enforce all bylaws. Have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Decaro. Okay, next, appointments.
Madam Chairman, at a prior meeting, we did one interview, and the discussion ensued that there had been another person with interest, for some reason got overlooked, and we haven't scheduled an interview with the other person that's interested in the position. So if we could do that tonight and maybe put this appointment off until we have time to conduct that interview.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'll make that in the form of a motion then.
Okay.
Ms. Chairman?
Mrs.
Madam Chairman?
Penna.
Did you want to meet, the old board met with Mr. Finn. Would you want to schedule, because there's 3 new members, to meet with him as well? When
I think
we
that
meet
wouldn't
with-
be a bad idea. If this decision's going to be made, you certainly want to have them be able to look at both candidates thoroughly so that they're on the same page as everybody else
Absolutely.
was. And perhaps maybe we can do that prior to next week's meeting. We do have a meeting on Tuesday. Would that give enough time, or do you want
Next
to
week?
wait until the 26th?
We have a meeting next Tuesday?
To set the tax
Setting
rate.
the tax rate.
Oh, that's
Tax
right.
rate.
So maybe we can meet at 7 o'clock then, and schedule the 2 interviews at 7, if that works for people, and then we can go right into our meeting at 7:30?
Let me just have Mr. Castanetti check his...
Sure.
Yeah, I think I could, 7
Okay.
o'clock? Yeah.
Wendy, could you arrange for those interviews at 7? Thank you very much. Okay. Moving right along on the agenda, citizens' comment period. We did have a request that citizens' comment guidelines be discussed.
Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Dever.
Thank you. As I stated when we were sworn in, I'd like to have a conversation this evening about the citizen comment period guidelines that were adopted in mid-August. I think there's been quite a bit of discussion during the campaign and from the time that these were initiated. So the first thing that I would like the board to consider is rescinding the citizen comment period guidelines adopted in August. The second thing that I would like the board to consider is allowing the citizen comment period to occur as it has in the past, with the understanding that the chairperson would inform the speaker that the board may not express an opinion, may make no recommendation, and may make no decision at the time of the discussion. The issue of concern would be placed on the next agenda, which would allow board members an opportunity to do further research, but it would allow the citizens to speak. I very much agree with some of the guidelines that were addressed here, that there be no personal attacks, that there be no discussion about a personnel issue, but to allow a resident to come before us to speak about a concern and allow this board to help if at all possible. So that is my hope, that the board will support this evening and that we can move forward. One other thing that I would hope the board would consider, much like this evening, is allowing citizens' comment to occur much earlier in the evening. Often, individuals are made to wait until the very end of the meeting, sometimes as late as 11 p.m. or midnight, and I just think as a courtesy to the residents to allow them to come forward without interrupting the business of the board, but allowing them to speak and allowing us to hear their concerns and then place that on the agenda. So that is what I'm hoping the board will support this evening.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
I have a few. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do believe that there should be some guidelines in place. Maybe not the guidelines that we currently have, but I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, let's rescind everything. I think we need to take a good hard look at what we have and talk about, for example, how long somebody has at the podium. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes. It's whatever this board and whatever the public wants. But I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. I think that's really important. And if we don't have guidelines, there may be other people that want to speak. And I do agree with Selectman Dever that we need to make sure, and we have been letting people speak at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting, because some people have to get home, some people come in later, so that's important. So that's my feeling on, I do believe that there's guidelines at town meeting, there's guidelines at the school committee, there's guidelines everywhere. We need some sort of guideline, whatever that is, whatever we all decide that should be. I also agree that if somebody comes up and they're not on the agenda, but they have something that's important that they want to say, that by all means they should have the right to get up and speak before this board. We cannot deliberate on it, we can't make a motion on it. Maybe we want to refer it to the town manager if it's appropriate, but I do believe that people should have the opportunity to get up and speak if there's something important and they feel the need, if they're on the agenda or not on the agenda. So that's my feelings on that. Thank you.
Mr. Allen, Mr. Castaneda, do you have anything further to add to that?
Well, I mean, on the guidelines, I think that we referred to go back to the original guidelines, is the direction that we're going to be going to. And I would actually support the original guidelines. The only motion that I would make to amend it would be due to the overwhelming response to question 2. I would actually like to change citizens forum language to concerned citizens.
You want the topic changed to from
I'd like to have that language, wherever language
citizens.
is said to be citizens forum, I'd like it to be changed to concerned citizens in respect to question 2.
Okay. I think I agree with both Mrs. Dever and Mrs. Panetta, and I think you both basically said the same thing, because you also said you want to see some parameters put in place.
Correct.
So as to allow the smooth operation of the meeting, but also to be able to allow folks to be heard as well. And I think a lot of it is common sense. You do not discuss any personnel issues, you would not discuss any legal issues, but some parameters would need to be in place. People should be able to come and speak to their representatives if something were to come up, and not to be told you weren't on the agenda tonight, so you have to wait 2 weeks to be heard. So, any further discussion on this? Is there a motion?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, I'm still confused. So you want to throw out all of the guidelines, so there's no more guidelines?
That's
Well,
not
it
what she
seems,
said.
Madam Chairman, if I could, just to respond, it seems that, if I heard you correctly, what was important to you was a suggested time frame. I absolutely agree with that. And I think a 5-minute time frame is reasonable with the option of the chairman to extend that. And I do feel that the concerned citizens' comment period is certainly an expression of what people expect. So I do feel that with that caveat, we should, one, rescind the guidelines. I think that is the first order of action. And the second is to take the wonderful ideas that have been given and go forward.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Panetta?
May I suggest respectfully that the chairperson, Madam Chair, take a look at the guidelines, and we could table this until our next meeting so that we have time to, before we just rescind them, have you take some time, take a look at them, see what we want to keep and what we do. I don't want to just say, let's throw everything away, and let's have something that we could look at and put our arms around, and that we all feel comfortable with.
I have no problem with doing that, Mrs. Panetta, but I do want to also, again, reiterate, that was not what I heard Mrs. Devil want to. She wanted to just bring it around a little bit more. She's not asking to throw everything out. She does believe in parameters, but why don't we work on that? This was your motion. Why don't you work on the language and bring it forward?
Absolutely.
You
And I
wanna make
think
a
it's
motion to
important that
table
if
it?
board members have concerns or things that they would like to see, that they be included so that we have a good, solid process going forward. So absolutely, but I just really feel it's very important that people feel they can come forward. So absolutely, at the next meeting, let's see if we can get something that everyone can agree upon and guide us through the next 2 years.
And Madam Chair, what we can do, and we've done this before, is we can print them out, we can put them in the paper, put them online, so that everybody understands what they are, so that there's no more confusion. Because I think that was, clearly that was problematic.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
very much. So we'll just leave this on the tip for the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have a continued hearing here from Hometown Pizza. This is continued for a variance to waive the external grease trap requirement under Article 4, Section 21 of the Town of Saugus Sewer and Rules and Regulations. This hearing is being held under Article 3, Section 12 of the Town of Saugus Sewer Rules and Regulations, and it was continued from 10/22. We did receive a letter today, and it is from Joseph Ananian, landlord. I represent Hometown Pizza and Joseph Ananian. My clients are currently scheduled before the board this evening regarding a request for a waiver variance as to the external grease trap requirement. As the board has changed over significantly, to provide the board with the time to acquaint themselves with the grease trap issues, we would respectfully request that our hearing be continued to the next board meeting on November 26, 2013. The delay will allow the new board time to acquaint itself with the issues. It may also provide time to clarify the interpretation of the definition of grease trap of the outdoor type. I would also urge the board to investigate newer technology now available, which may in effect be more efficient than a traditional grease trap. We would also request that the order for compliance be also extended to the date of the board's first meeting in January. Assuming a decision at the November 26th meeting, that should give sufficient time for compliance. Thank you for your cooperation. Nelson C. Chang. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Madam Chairman, I do not have
Mrs.
a
Dever?
question. I would like to speak on this and then make a motion to grant this request and also hold the enforcement of action in abeyance at the request of the applicant and their attorney. So that will be my motion going forward. I'm sure many of you, like myself, spent a fair amount of time researching grease traps. And the very first thing I did was to go on to the Town of Saugus website to look for the grease trap regulation or the sewer regulations, and they weren't there. So I wondered how an applicant would really know where to begin. We were given a copy of the sewer regulations as part of our welcome package when we were elected. And the first thing that I noted was that those regulations are dated 1987. And I think all of us can understand that there's been quite a bit of technology that's advanced over 25 years. So in trying to understand this and reading this and looking at the Code of Massachusetts regulations, I know at our meeting on the 26th, I would very much like to have the plumbing inspector come and talk with us a little bit about what technology is available. The regulations that we are under right now seem to be extremely restrictive, seem to be almost a cost that a small business could not be burdened with, yet everything I read seems to say that there is more technology out there that would allow an applicant to achieve the same thing the town of Saugus wants, which is not having grease go into our system and cause more difficulties and more cost to the taxpayer. So I really would like to hear from the plumbing inspector, because I'm sure he's aware of technology and he can guide us on what's appropriate, what is not appropriate, and the regulations as they read right now for this community state only one thing, and that is the external grease trap go into the ground. And with ledge and with water, it just seems that with the advancements in technology, we could use some guidance. So in granting this request or making a motion to, on behalf of the applicant, hold this over to our November 26th meeting and hold any monetary fines in abeyance, I'd also like to ask the plumbing inspector to come and give us guidance.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Panetta.
Thank you. I don't have an issue with Selectman Dever's recommendation, but the plumbing inspector does mostly maintenance. What I would also, so I agree with that. What I would also like is an opinion from CDM. I mean, they're our engineers, and they've been following this. So I think it'd be really important to get the feedback and input from our engineers. And we also have an environmental attorney, George Halen, who's been very much involved with our I&I, our inflow and infiltration. So I would like to get an opinion from him as well.
Madam Chairman? I'm not in any disagreement with those recommendations. In fact, this evening we were handed something from the town manager regarding CDM. I also feel that there is technology there, and if the plumbing inspector is someone who gives recommendations regarding plumbing, I would very much like to hear from him as well. I think adding the cost of an environmental attorney to come in, I mean, I think we need to think about that as well. So clearly, the plumbing inspector is important to me as my local inspector who is guiding an applicant who comes before us, and certainly any and all information to help guide us. But I think looking at new technology and trying to encourage small businesses to achieve what it is we want and allow them to open is very important. And I think this has become a very volatile issue. It has caused great delay for applicants, and I think we need as much guidance as possible. And it does also come from our local inspectors. So my motion would remain. Thank you.
Mr. Castanetti.
Looking at the packages we have, and I was certainly a proponent of getting the plumbing inspector here as well, but I think we have several companies that have sent us information on external grease trap alternatives. And I think it would make even more sense if we brought some of those representatives in to explain their technology and let us know what their options are for as opposed to an external grease trap. I think that in conjunction with the plumbing inspector and possibly the director of the Board of Health, or the Health Department, Frank Giacalone, I think we can get a better position as to what the best alternatives are that are available to us today. So I'd like to bring some of these folks in as well to tell us about their products.
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear. I wasn't asking for the environmental attorney to come to our meeting. I was asking for an opinion. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think that was I don't think that was the intent of the statement.
Okay.
Okay, I think maybe I mistook that. I think anytime we can be educated on options that are before us, and the more information we have to make an informed decision, the better off we're going to be, the better off the town's going to be. That being said, I can see the Mr. Manager over here has something he would like to say in regards to this issue. Am I correct?
That is correct,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chairman. It sounds like there's, and this is just a suggestion and recommendation to the board, it sounds like there's two different issues that the board's tackling. One has to do with making a decision on a waiver. The other has to do with maybe making a decision on a waiver contingent on, or the condition of some alternative. And then it sounds like probably the third issue is the board seems to be having a discussion about looking at the regulations as a whole and possibly making changes to the regulation, which you might want to consider having a public advertisement for that, and maybe bringing in, like each of you suggested, is try to get opinions from the Board of Health as well as wastewater engineers that understand how grease and fog gets into the system, and to evaluate the actual alternatives you're looking at, because some of the technology is new, hasn't been out there that long, and I'm sure some work better than others. And that's, I think, maybe what the board is looking for so that they can tackle that. But this looks like three different issues. But if it's a regulation change that, as Selectman Dever stated, it's an older regulation. The other aspect is we're going to want to look at a legal aspect of what agreement is in place legally with the Lynn Water wastewater, because I think they're requiring us to do certain things, and we may have to do an amendment to that. So I think it's complex, and I think it's proactive that the board and the town is looking at alternatives. But gathering all that information, I think, is helpful. I think the plumbing inspector probably has some, knowledge about different alternatives that are out there. But I think you want to hear from also the Board of Health that deals with that, as well as our sewer engineers that deal with and understand maybe and evaluate if we had a list of certain alternative devices, we could actually allow them to maybe evaluate them or give an opinion prior to a meeting.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Castaneda.
I just want to clear something up. I don't think we're looking at alternatives that are going to deliver less of a product than an external grease trap. I think there's a balancing act that we have to follow. We've spent a ton of money on doing the sewer system over. We have an obligation under the ACO to keep grease out of the system as much as possible. And I'm not looking for alternatives that aren't going to give us the same result as an external grease trap. That's why I think we need the technology, or the information about the technology, before we do anything. We can't change a regulation unless we know what we're changing it to. And without information, I don't see how we can do that. So the more information we can get, the better off we're going to be. We can't jeopardize the ACO at this point.
Completely agree.
Madam Chairman?
Mrs.
Just,
Jenner.
I think long-term, in speaking to what the manager has said, that I point out that the regulations are 25-plus years old that I'm looking at. So that's a long-term looking at those regulations, just like our bylaws and our ordinances. You are correct that we either grant a waiver or we don't. And that is what is before us, and applicants have been languishing at a great cost to them. And I'm just saying that with as much information as possible, there are alternatives out there that I think we should not shut the door on. And that is the purpose of looking for information. Obviously, the ACO has been $25 million to the taxpayers, and we need to remain on track with that. Just talking about educating ourselves and trying to look at an alternative for a business that wants to open in our community. So with that, I will make a motion, if I don't want to cut anyone else off, to grant the request for Hometown Pizza to continue their hearing until November 26th and to hold any monetary fines in abeyance until the issue is resolved.
Seconded by the chair. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion passes. And Mr. Manager, you will look into coordinating some of the entities that perhaps could fulfill that role?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Oh, my goodness, we're a little late. The 8 o'clock hearing for Alberto Jimenez doing business as Hometown Pizza. That was, we just, excuse me, now, Demore's Pizza and Deli, 304 Lincoln Avenue.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. For the record, Anthony Cogliano, 27 Sereno Way, Saugus, Mass., representing the property. With me is Mr. Demore. This is a transfer of license from King's Pizza to Demore's. Basically, same hours of operation, same type of menu. I brought Mr. Demore with me if you have any questions for him.
Thank you.
For the record, Anthony Demore, 94 Graves Road, Revere, Mass. Any questions, please ask.
Any questions from board members?
Mr. Demore, hi. Could you just, for the newer members who may not know, tell us your hours of operation, please?
Right now, it's 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I plan on opening Monday through Friday, probably 11 to 11 or 11 to 10. And I was going to do breakfast Saturday and Sundays only. So that'll be 6 in the morning.
So your hours, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Yes. That's,
And the seating?
I believe that's what it currently
Is there any seating?
Yes. 30 seating, I believe standing room's like 38. That's what's currently on the record.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Castanetti?
you've seen the comments, I'm sure, from the
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 expenses-
building inspector, the Board of Health, plumbing inspector.
Yes.
Pump out the grease trap and all, since we're talking about grease traps.
Yeah, it's actually-
That's one of the comments that's on here.
If I could, Mr. Castanetti?
Go ahead,
Today I had both internal and external grease traps emptied and cleaned. I have the paperwork, I gave it to Frank this afternoon, and I also added language to the lease, per order of Frank, that he's required to empty the internal grease trap every 3 months, and the external grease trap, which is 3,500 gallons, twice a year.
I'm also going to keep a log and send the receipts in.
So I had that.
There's also a mention of a CO detector,
Thank
new
you.
CO detector to be
Yes,
installed.
did the fire department go by yet?
What's that?
So they'll just be giving you manifest sheets each time they come in?
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
I'll take care of it.
The CO detector, all right. And then the fire department. Fire extinguishers must be properly hung and labeled. They weren't in there now?
They were in there, they just weren't hung.
Okay. Exit lighting must be in working condition, and emergency lighting must be in working condition, so common
Okay,
sense.
are they going to come out and re-inspect prior to?
Did they sign off on it? If they didn't sign off on it, they'll have to come back out and look.
Okay. I don't know how they left it with Mr. Demore.
I wasn't there, he was, but looks like they wrote no objections, so.
Could you speak into the microphone so
I'm
people
sorry,
can hear?
yeah, I wrote on the note that I got no objections, so I'm assuming they're not coming back?
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I can follow up with the fire department tomorrow and just make sure that all whatever questions they have are addressed prior to him opening. I'll
Okay.
take care of that.
Any further questions of the board?
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Panetta?
Thank you. So are you purchasing this business?
Yes, not the property, just.
Right.
Yes,
And have you done this type of work before?
over 25 years.
Great.
And I'm gonna have, I'm gonna have my mom working with me and my brother-in-law. My mom has over 35 years' experience. My brother-in-law is actually a chef from Italy, so you're gonna have good food in Saugus.
We do, thank you.
Any further questions? What's the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I will make a motion
But
for...
this is a public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Oh,
We have an
you have to
open
open
hearing.
it, sorry.
You got to offer it out first.
Yes, sorry.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or opposed? Seeing none, what is the wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Mrs. Panetta moves to close the public hearing, seconded by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No.
I'll make a motion for Demore Pizza and Deli, Inc., 304 Lincoln Avenue, for transfer of common victuals license and entertainment license from Cal Purveyors, Inc., doing business as King's Pizzeria at 304 Lincoln Avenue, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. And was there a seating of 38 or 30?
30.
30, a seating of 30. Anything else anybody wants to add?
Okay. Ms. Allen?
Was there breakfast hours?
Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Those are the 2 days I'm going to be opening at 6.
Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck to you.
Take care. Next, we have Town Manager's Report.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Board. Just a update. Today, we had a incident with the Belden Bly Bridge. The temporary bridge was stuck up, and that was due to told by the Transportation Department that was due to a computer glitch. It took a couple of hours, but that has been corrected. They had to reroute traffic for a couple of hours today through Ballard Street. But that is corrected, and hopefully won't have that incident happen too often. Also, just to give an update, this past week we had a meeting scheduled. The town had a meeting scheduled with Suffolk Downs. This is a part of some ongoing meetings that we've had. After they had the vote in East Boston, they did postpone that meeting, and we're in the process trying to reschedule that. And just to give a little bit of background history, we've met in the past, and one of the things that they preliminarily agreed to do is to allow, they have an engineering traffic study that was completed for all the, for the impact that's available. They did agree, and we're in the process of working that out, to have a peer review done at their expense with CDM that's done for other communities, and to also the possibility of looking at additional intersections and roadways within Saugus to look at what the impact would be if people are using 107 or Ballard Street in different intersections, because as I think everybody knows, the concern is what kind of impact it's going to have on our roadways and the residents, because even, you look at Lincoln Ave at traffic hour, if you even increase that traffic by 1%, one way or the other, going to Boston for traffic or coming home, it can have a significant impact. So that's something that we've been looking at. They are, my understanding is they are looking at the entire casino site in Revere. I think that they're still trying to work out that. We have our information that, we'll set up to meet with them again, hopefully to talk about this and to move that forward. We also have a comment, open comment period with the Gaming Commission on a surrounding community to be accepted. That went out earlier this year. They still haven't made a determination, but I think one of the things that the Suffolk Downs was doing is they were trying to establish a host community agreements prior to making any kind of outside agreements, or the Gaming Commission, determining who would be considered a surrounding community that's impacted. But I think I'm optimistic, and there were some positive talks in the past about Saugus having some impact and possibly coming up with an agreement that would be outside of the Gaming Commission establishing Saugus as a surrounding community. I think that the Gaming Commission is encouraging that as they move forward the process. I think things are still up in the air, but that's where we're at. We're hoping at some point to get an additional meeting in the next few weeks or a month to look at the traffic and make sure that we're on track to see the impact on that. Also,
Excuse me, Mr. Manager, would you prefer to get through your whole report, and then perhaps if members have questions pertaining to your report, you want to do it as the topic comes up, or when you've completed your report?
Whatever you prefer. If you want to ask questions each topic, that would be fine.
Okay. Mrs.
Madam
Dever.
Chairman, if I might, thank you, Mr. Manager. In speaking about a community agreement with Suffolk Downs or with any other casino-type entity, you had said you had met earlier. Do you have some minutes of those meetings or a summary you might be able to share for those new members on the board? I think it would be very helpful for us to understand the tone and the discussion, and to take a look at what other communities have requested who might be impacted. So if you could share that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. There are no minutes. It's meetings that we've had, or a meeting that we had with Paul Rupp and Chip Tuttle from he's the COO of Suffolk Downs, and the tone was very open, and obviously part of this process for them, just so to get a better understanding of it, the process for the casino is that, and the Gaming Commission in making a determination of granting a license has to do with if communities are acceptable to their, in the community they're going into, as well as surrounding communities, if they've received favorably. So there is some motivation, obviously, to make friends and look at mitigation to surrounding communities such as Saugus. And it's, a matter of us providing or documenting through traffic impact and other things in businesses. I mean, I think one of the concerns, and that's what was drafted to the Gaming Commission, is that, whether we're going to be looking at a positive or a negative impact for our restaurants and our establishments up on Route 1, due to the fact that, as you're aware, I think we're 8th in the state as far as meals tax revenue, and we're pretty dependent on almost $1 million of meals taxes within our operating budget that helps provide full-service community for our residents. If for whatever reason a casino is established and there's infrastructure that's built around, there are some studies that show that generally when people go to casinos, they stay at casinos to eat, and that could have a significant impact on us up on Route 1 in a negative way. Or if there's additional traffic, people may choose to say, I'm not going to go up on Route 1. So that's sort of the concern, and what was the tenor of what we discussed at the meetings. And I think obviously for a lot of reasons for them granting the license, they are open for those type of discussions. But I think obviously they're trying to narrow down their agreements with the host communities, and then, there's still nothing agreed. I think Winthrop is still up in the air, as well as Chelsea. I think Chelsea's closer, but there's been no formal agreements, and everything's sort of tight-lipped. I think one of the things they are looking at, I'm guessing, is there's a speculation that they look at the size of your budget and, what percentage of your budget and impact and whatnot.
Madam Chairman, if I might, even just a summary, Mr. Manager, because I know in reading what Winthrop and Chelsea have looked at, and I was unaware that they had not reached an agreement, but I know the Gaming Commission is recommending and urging these community agreements, and one of the things they looked at was the public safety impact, alternative routes, and I think anyone who has traveled Route 107 will see that any kind of gaming situation in Revere will look for alternative routes from Route 1 and will then impact 107, so that then becomes the possibility of a development mecca. So there really is a far-reaching to the community. So even a summary would be helpful to allow us to be brought up to speed. So thank you.
And that sort of plays into my next topic, and something that I know everybody's talked about and that we're moving forward with, and myself and Robert Luongo have had some meetings with different property owners over the past couple of weeks, because as you know, there's been a lot of movement and sales with some of the different properties up on Route 1, which we've met with the MAPC, and one of the things that we're looking at is applying for a Delta grant, and they seem very receptive to that. And Essentially, the town of Saugus would be requesting technical and planning assistance from the MAPC through their Delta program for an initiative to advance sustainable land use development and to address needs identified in the town's community development plan, consistent with Metro Future as well as the Commonwealth Sustainable Development Principles. Specifically, as you're aware, we have not just one or two, but we have numerous land opportunities for development, and the town of Saugus would seek assistance in preparation of strategies for achieving the vision of sustainable economic development along Route 1 in Saugus as a whole corridor, or at least within parcels that are ready and able for development, and possibly envelope overlays that would allow, if a developer come in, to put 4 parcels together. And obviously, all this is, as everybody knows, the town meeting is the gatekeeper for zoning bylaw changes, but we're trying and moving in a direction to be more proactive rather than reactive. And I think that this plays into, the casino, and whether the casino goes there or not, or just economic times go up and down. One of the goals I think that we've discussed is trying to have diversification up on Route 1, so that we're having development that generates higher annual Class A property values on an annual basis, so that if we have economic downturns or something with the meals tax or room taxes or a casino, then at least we have some diversification that can more sustainable and less volatile. So that's something that we're moving forward with, and we've been in discussions and have some drafts that have gone off to them, and they seem very receptive. I think Route 1, what they tell us is that we're glad Saugus is sort of at the table now, and I think they're intrigued with what we have for diversity. I mean, not to mention that we're moving towards looking at the Mill District as well as Cliftondale, Saugus Center, and those areas, and it's such a diverse. It's almost like 2 different communities, because you have Route 1 that is a different type of development, and then you have small business, which Cliftondale, Saugus Center, that is sort of, I think needs some looking at and vision to move forward. But that's where we're at regarding some of the economic development opportunities.
Thank you.
And I know we have quite a few people waiting here, and I'll cut it short for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Actually, this is the end of the agenda. It has a Eustis Ave. I assume all of you folks here from Eustis Ave? Street, excuse me. Are you all from Eustis Street? Okay, do we have one spokesman who's going to begin speaking on your behalf?
Madam Chairman, if you want me to give maybe a little background.
Mr. Manager?
Sure. Basically, this is the Eustis Street and the development on the Revere and Saugus side. Just to give an idea, there's a development, and I think most of you know, and I think it's approximately 11 acres in Saugus, 10 or 11 acres that are in Saugus. I think 3.5 sort of border right there, and then I think it's about 40 acres that are in Revere that have been now acquired by the same entity. I think there's only one piece that still hasn't been, this is the old Waylou's site, but there's about one piece that hasn't been acquired yet, I think is Fury Bus, and I think they are in negotiations to purchase that. Revere did rezone. I know that myself and Robert Longo sat down with the developer, the owner, a week or two ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. And they have no idea what they want. They're obviously looking for highest and best use. They did go to Revere, and Revere frowned upon having any kind of residential because of the impact of their school systems and resources, and that's why it was zoned to a commercial. So one of the things that this has been going on since probably back in '09 with different incidents that have triggered some activity down on Eustis Street with trucking. One was when they putting in a foundation, they were building a church. They started doing that, and they had some heavy trucking going down there. We did respond to that at that time. and that was I think the building commissioner went down. That project stopped because I think the property is acquired, and then they quieted for a while. It then picked up again because they took a house down, and then they had some trucking using that access. So that's sort of the background. Robert Luongo, as well as the building commissioner, have been down speaking with the neighbors. Obviously, our concern and your concern and my concern is paramount to the residents and the impact to the neighborhood. I think and Robert Luongo is here also to speak, answer any questions, and I guess give a little background on it because he's been in contact. One of the things that the developer has agreed to do is to put a locked gate that the police and fire will have a key to at the end of the street. They're okay with doing that. It looks like, and everything, nothing's definitive, but one of the things that we've stressed to them is that we need to work with Revere as well as with Saugus, and what they'll need to do and what we're requiring is that they have a master plan of whatever development they have, and part of that development, we would want restricted access so that they would block that roadway off. One of the positive things is they do have access to Route 1. They say they are going through some channels to be able to access that, even if they have to be able to access it through the property that they have, which is already has frontage. But that, I think, is a positive thing for us in that position. But that's sort of the background, and I can answer questions as things come up. And I know that, what paramount is to try to get on board with a master plan so that we have, because if they need any zoning change or whatnot, there is a natural buffer zone with Saugus because of what they're looking to do is more on the Revere end of things. There is some cliffs and whatnot that I think help us to, be in a better position for the neighborhood or having an impact, as well as having other access to that property.
Madam Chairman, if I might just ask one question, Bobby, sorry. Lock gate at the end of Eustace Street, when would it be locked?
It would be locked all the time, and that's something that the police and fire have talked about, and they would get keys for that.
So that would prohibit trucking on the street?
It would prohibit somebody from accessing that without somebody calling and getting permission to do so, or letting us know what's going on.
Would that prohibit the trucking on that street?
I don't think it would prohibit the trucking. I think that's a different issue, unfortunately, and we've looked at this issue to permanently prevent that from happening. Legally, it would be considered a taking.
They said that.
And that's a difficult avenue. The other avenue we looked at, and when I was on the board, we looked at this, is doing an engineering study to be able to put in no heavy trucking signs. The legal issue with that, and the problem is that you have to have ongoing trucking that's documented for an extended period of time, not just intermittently, and then that would have to be documented with an engineering study and then submitted to get no heavy trucking. So we're sort of in a place that's difficult to be able to restrict complete access or to put up heavy trucking signs from a legal standpoint. But I think it's positive, and I know it's difficult. I mean, if you live down there, it's obviously a major issue. Is that the discussion and the dialogue was, and Robert can speak on it a little more, has been very receptive of, that it doesn't seem like their plans have anything to do with using the accessing Eustace Street, which if they did at that time, then we would be in a much better position for restricted access. So if that helps at all.
Okay.
How you doing? Robert Camuso, 27 Eustace. The lock gate's not really what I'm here for. I mean, it's a Revere property that should be accessed to Revere. It's a large parcel of property. I was running out of ink. I could only make one copy. But there's also dumping going on down there. I understand the gate, but political signs from Revere were dumped down there a couple days ago. The trucking's an issue. This whole property's an issue. My street, and it's going to be impacting all the prior streets, any part, that whole area. The trucking, we had the engineer study done 2 years ago. Mr. Robato at the time was there. I just can't see how we can't get a tonnage limit on that street. I mean, we see it more than the people who don't live on the street. It's brutal, up and down, issues with the park, out-of-city soccer player moms coming down that are running late, flying down the street, double timing even faster coming back. The signage at Anna Park is terrible. It's across the street, you can't even see it. Slow children signs do not work on my street. This property would be a horror show to the integrity of this whole area down there. I understand, I went to the Cliftondale meeting earlier. I understand there was a conflict of scheduling, but a lot of people that should be here went there because they got the phone call thinking that that was the meeting. I try to do what I can do and try to get them here, sell them out here, but when this project goes, because it is going to go, is he going to develop it? Probably not. He's putting all his eggs in one basket, I'm assuming, and he's already tried to sell the property before. There's a man from Cliftondale. He pointed it out that it has been on a real estate site when it was just Caddy Farms. He went in front of the Board of Appeals. I moved here 2000, I think it was. 2 weeks after I moved in, I was at a meeting to have this stopped. It's been an ongoing thing. He got the 40B, he claimed hardship. His hardship was that he didn't want access to a Revere because it was too expensive. They gave him the Eustis Street. We're only supposed to use Laurel Street for construction. There's not one piece of heavy trucking that's been down Laurel Street since that day. My street have seen it all. It's not fair to the residents in the area for a North Revere property that's going to collect all the revenue for the Saugus people to pay all the infrastructure repairs and not see a dime from it. There's an issue that I'm trying to get restrictions put in place now with your help so we don't have to see this. But it's tough. I've been battling this. I've been up here before, Board of Appeals. I've been here. I need help. There's a lot of residents that I hope get up and express their opinions. I'm sure there are. I can't see how we can't get tonnage issues on the street, on the trucks coming up and down. There is going to be a trucking issue when someone is going to develop that land. Right now, they have access. It was in the Globe. There's two accesses to the street, Waylu's and Eustis Street, or Muzzy Street. I was told tonight that there is going to go a gate. There is going to be a gate put there. But until the issue with the church is cleared up, that gate's not going in. That picture right there is showing that there's an issue with political signs from Revere getting dumped as trash and through Saugus. They have to come through Saugus to get there. There's a big issue on this street. I mean, I don't know if you guys have the answers. Well, we're asking for them. It's tough. I mean, I just can't see.
Madam Chairman?
I mean, realistically.
Bobby, what's the issue with the church?
It changes every day.
I thought that was done.
Well, rumor has it that he's offered parcels of land for a swap-off deal, and then the parcels of land are not suitable for their needs. So I don't know where he stands. There is no communication between the owner of that property and Eustis Street residents or any surrounding it. There never was. Not even the time of day. It was always his lawyers at the Board of Appeals and the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals really, they didn't even want to hear from us. They got so sick and tired of hearing it from us. We couldn't even speak at a public meeting. It was ridiculous. I've said it before here. I said, we're there, we're the ones getting impacted. I'm the one with the investments on the street. They're the ones with the investments. A lot of value on my house is because I live on a dead-end street. You take away that dead-end street and start putting 3,000 cars a day on a commercial development down there, I lose 30% easy on my house.
Madam Chairman?
Selectman Cassidy.
This is an issue that's been going on, Bobby, I don't know how many years, but you and I have been talking about this for quite a long time, since I was on the board the first time. And I think our primary responsibility is to these people right here, not somebody from Revere that's going to build up whatever he's going to build there, tax revenue go into the city of Revere. They have access they can develop from Revere, and I don't know why we're sitting here talking about this 6 years, I think, after you and I talked about it the first time. I think we need to do everything we can to shut that street down and let them, I don't care how expensive it is, if they can afford to buy Whalers and they can afford to buy 40 acres of land, they can afford to put a road in there too. And I think it's time that we put our foot down and do something about it, whether we have to hire counsel, what we have to do, but we need to get something done, and we got to stop playing around with this. It's not, I can't see this going on for another 6 years. This is not fair to the residents of Eustis Street under any circumstances. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Devon.
Good evening. And I hope before all of you leave tonight, you will sign and let us know that you were here this evening. Sign a piece of paper so we can get back in touch with you. Before the election, you invited the chairperson and myself down to walk that property. It's the first time I had actually walked that property in quite some time. And there were a number of concerns raised, and I don't think I'm speaking out of tune as we walked that property. The first that was that in a very short period of time, your neighborhood essentially became a war zone of heavy trucking with no one there to support you or to address the issue. We walked that property, we see the gravel, we see the foundation quickly poured, we see that there is tremendous damage to your road, we see what appears to be a sinkhole, we see drainage, we see homes that have been impacted by increased water because water must go somewhere when you divert that. It's very clear that at least the infrastructure that you referred to is grossly damaged. The neighborhood has very much been impacted. In reading the material we were given and in talking with you folks, I want to make sure that I understand fully. I know this is probably just the tip of the iceberg, but you've been impacted by trucking, illegal dumping, traffic, drainage, vandalism, infrastructure, design that is now beginning to fail. Yeah. And so in looking at alternatives, you know, as I said to you, this is a property located in Revere, but right now only being accessed through Saugus. Right. We receive no tax revenue. We receive all of the burden and the impact. And I know that the police have tried very hard to enforce trucking, but I didn't see any signs that identified weight limits on that street. Was that issue ever addressed? I know that you cannot close a street without offering an alternative route, but you certainly could look at a common sense approach of restricting the tonnage, and then that being citable. And I wondered if that issue had ever been looked at.
If I might, Madam Chairman, we had talked about that quite a while ago, and that's the reason we want to do the engineering study, to see if we could limit the size of the vehicles going down that street, the weight of those vehicles, so it didn't tear the road up and drive these folks crazy every time they went by. I think we need to get an engineering study done and get it done quickly.
Madam Chairman, well, looking at the information we were given, it looks like a traffic study was voted by the previous board, but I don't see that we have a copy of it, so I don't know that it was completed. The last traffic study that was in this packet is 2011, so a recent, traffic study, engineering study, looks like it was voted. I just don't know that it was done.
Just to address the issue on the heavy trucking, part of trying to get a restriction, whether it's to close the access of the road, and you can look from the legal opinion, but also to prevent or to restrict the tonnage, you have to have an engineering study, but the engineering study has to include heavy trucking that's ongoing. And I think that's the issue that has been run into since, I think, back in '09, is that the trucking that's going down there is intermittently happening, so that you don't have a constant heavy trucking going on down there. So when you do the engineering study, it's not going to reveal that there's heavy trucks that are going on at so many per day or per hour, and that's where you have a difficulty, because you need that information and data to be able to submit to the Department of Transportation to be able to be approved for restricting the heavy tonnage. And that's sort of the difficult situation that we're in to resolve it.
Bobby, how often do the trucks go down there?
Well, since they took the house down, there really hasn't been much of a trucking. He's pretty much shut down for the winter. When they were doing that road, 8 trucks an hour. That's 70,000 pounds. When I was up here, the last meeting I was here, it's kind of tough to understand that terminology. So we have to wait until the development starts flying to see the impact, to do a study on the impact, to close the road. I mean, that's what it sounds like.
That unfortunately, that's the way the requirements are to be able to be approved for no, to restrict the tonnage that access the road. I spoke with legal counsel. We've actually had a meeting with all the department heads a couple of weeks ago, with the building commissioner, the town council, economic development coordinator with that, and the fire and police chiefs, and had a discussion about what is the best solution. And I think that's a difficult, it's challenging to be able to restrict heavy trucking.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Cassidy.
Bobby, where's Muzzy? It's Muzzy Street?
Eustis Street runs right into Muzzy. As soon as it hits Revere, I'm assuming it turns right over to Muzzy as soon as it hits Revere. That's it. I have a map.
Where,
that's what it
is there
would
there's another access point from Revere into that spot?
show. You can actually Google it on your iPhone.
Several.
It gives you 5 different spots. It shows paper roads on your map.
Are there any finished roads, or are they all paper streets?
Well, you got, I can't think of the first street in Revere. That actually,
That's Franklin Street.
Franklin, that actually abuts the whole backside of the property.
I know it does.
And
I know
they claimed hardship. That's what happened, and that's why the Board of Appeals granted them access down Eustis Street. But like I said, if I'm telling you I'm broke, you got to believe me. You can't prove that I'm broke. And he claimed hardship, and he was able to get access down Eustis Street because it was the easiest way possible to this property. Same way with the crossing on Laurel Street. I had the MBTA property real estate agent down there, and he laughed. All they did was pick up the phone and say, what do I have to do for a crossing? I had the guy down there say, it's very easy. All he has to do is put in an application, and if he really wanted to do it, he can donate 2 feet of property on the backside where those tracks used to be, and it's illegal. He has to get crossing over the track. It's legal. It's city property. And he just went to the easiest avenue to get it. He got it 10 years ago, maybe. And he hasn't put a shovel in the ground. And he kept on renewing the permit because of the 40B situation, and he never put a shovel in the ground. And it made the property more valuable having a permit to that. And it was proven that he was intent was to sell the property. Now it's a huge parcel of property, and it's going to impact Cliftondale. It's going to impact where we lose all those residents, homeowners. He's going to, like Fiore Bus, it makes the parcel unstoppable. And it's in our backyard. I mean, there's issues at Anapaca. They built that road up almost 2 feet. Conservation, I can't believe they let that happen. If I did that, if you went down and went on that road, you see how high the road is. The road is sitting 2 feet high. That's stopping water flow. That's holding water in the back of Anapaca Playground. There was people down here from there was a lot of water on the baseball field, and that's on the far end of Anapaca. Conservation's been done. I just can't see. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people not doing their jobs. I hate to say that. I hate to be rude like that, but compliance is not being done in Saugus, not being done in Revere. I don't take me the wrong way. All right? People have to do their jobs. We're seeing it. I'm up here now. I'm putting my family on the line because I have a family. There's people not doing their jobs. And we need help, and that's why I'm here.
Madam Chairman? Robert Luongo's here, and he may be able to shed some light on the 40B and just to give a little bit of background with the developer, if that would please the board.
Madam
I
Chairman?
wouldn't go too far, though, okay?
Madam Chairman, if other residents want to speak, it might be helpful so that Mr. Luongo could
Sure.
answer all of their questions at once. As a courtesy, they've been waiting.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Helen Falashewski. I live at 21 Eustace Street. I've been there for 34 years and have really been quite content there. But these last 10 years have really been a nightmare. You know, you're talking about the development of Route 1 and this casino's coming in. I think you need to think about Eustace Street's is going to become a passageway through. What people say, the gates are there. I'm telling you right now, if you come down to Eustace Street and you see the bike trail that was supposed to be, you know, a great place for families, you see the kids hanging out there, burning fires in the back, they're just going to have a gate to hang out and sit and party and do whatever they want. It's really a problem. You're going to increase, you know, I think about when the trucks first started coming down, all of a sudden we started having sinkholes and pipes burst on our street. If you all remember, you know, it hasn't been that long ago that Route 1 has been a mess because the Route 1 wasn't built to handle the traffic that it has today. So we were constantly having, you know, every time you'd hear, oh, there's a backup on Route 1 because you've got the traffic because there's another water main break. That's going to be Eustace Street. You know, as it looks right now, it looks like hell because you've got patches already starting from where the roads are breaking. You're seeing these big trucks coming down. I get that the business needs to happen, but you're also talking about managing the traffic and improving Cliftondale and Saugus Center. You're not going to have that if you don't start to think about how you're going to redirect. I get Revere's our neighbor. We have to try to work cooperatively, but at the same time, it really is about a money issue, and it does feel like someone wasn't paying attention, someone wasn't, you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. It is a water area, and all of a sudden, miraculously, oh no, we can do it. You know, it just doesn't work. So I'm asking you to think about the traffic, think about the water, think about the, you know, people hanging out and doing things there. You know, we've got a drug dealer on the street that people just seem to look the other way, you know, and, you know, all those things are happening. And you're saying that you can't do the study for the heavy trucks because you can't put a trucking sign up because you have to have a study for the trucks. I think that the board should consider at least, I get that you can't put the sign up right now, but I think to at least manage and really take an informed look at what's happening, I think that you need to say that there's a stay on Eustace Street, that these trucks cannot go until this is done, that you're not saying that they're not ever going to be able to go again, but that you need to say, hey, wait a minute, like we're causing like sinkholes on this road, and it's just not built for that. That was my big thing. So that was it. But again, I'm against it. It just really, I think there are other ways to do it. And I think that the board really needs to take their time and make a decision about doing this in a more planful way and not in a way that's endangering not only Eustace Street, but Whitney Street and all the surrounding streets in all the increased traffic that it's going to create, because we cannot manage it down there. Thank you.
Thank you. If you give your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Curcio. I live at number 22 Eustace Street, father of 2 young children, and I'm going to speak for myself, and I'll probably reiterate some of the points you've already heard, and I'd like to address a few of the points that I would like to make myself. I moved into that neighborhood in 1999. I have, again, 2 young children. They're with me this evening, and there are several families on this street alone that have multiple children. And one of the things that we are fortunate to have is this current dead-end street situation where these children can play. Yes, we have Anna Parker Playground right next to our property. And one of the major concerns that we have is we also have several high-level sex offenders in our community that are not far from us. And this raises a concern with me as a parent that I don't want my children over at that playground area unattended, unsupervised. They can play out in their neighborhood with their neighborhood friends, riding their bikes, playing street hockey, playing basketball, to and from each other's houses under the supervision of myself and the other parents on the street. This is something that we value very highly. We already have one resident that lives on our street, has multiple commercial vehicles that he parks in his driveway, that idle endlessly. My oldest child is asthmatic. We have voiced some complaints. This is one resident that lives there that utilizes the property for its unintended purpose. It's residential, not commercial, with commercial vehicles. If you open this street up, if you allow this traffic to flow, you're going to be taking away the neighborhood for these children. They're not going to have a place to play. They can't play out on that street with the heavy trucking and the increased volume of traffic that's going up and down that street. I heard what my neighbor had to say about the increased traffic just from the soccer and Little League games alone. And he's right. There are people that have gone up and down that street in excess of 30 miles per hour. I have stood out in that street. My neighbor has stood out in the street. My mother, who has come to visit to watch the children and spend time with her grandchildren, have stood out on that street to tell people that they need to slow down. All the signage that you have hasn't stopped anything. It hasn't changed anything. Again, I moved into that neighborhood in 1999. I've heard about this development. I've been opposed to it. I think several other neighbors are going to speak pretty much to the same extent that I am. I would really implore upon the board to please take a look at this and really strongly consider leaving that street as a dead-end street. It is already labeled as such. While I understand that it has a paper road, Muzzy Street at the end, it's still, in my opinion, an important part, and we should leave it as is, and we shouldn't change that. Again, I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Steve Sweezy, 58 Weston Avenue, town meeting member from Precinct 2. The concerns you're hearing from the neighborhood down there has gone on for too long. As one of the board members have pointed out, this issue has just every few years bubbles to the surface. And when it does, it affects the people that live down there, the residents that live down there. They're not so much against what's going to go up on the Revere side. They haven't got control over that. But they're asking you as their elected officials that what we do have control of, we should use and utilize for the protection of the residents down there. And that's what they're looking for, a plan that we can go forward and keep the trucks and keep the heavy equipment from coming across their residential streets. I hope that you'll support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sweezy.
Hi, my name is Isla Rivcannon, and I live in 24 Eustis Street. I just recently moved to neighborhood in January of 2013, and within a couple months, my gas line burst, leaked. So I have a question for you. So in order to do the study on a traffic, how many more leaks do we need to have on our street and make our street more dangerous for you to do something about it?
Through you, Madam Chairman, I'm on your side.
I know you're
I live in
on
the
our
precinct.
side, but
Unfortunately,
but can you present that to whoever legal you are
me.
presenting to?
I think what the town manager's telling you at this point, what we're trying to do is we do have the economic developer here, and if we could get as much information from you folks so that when he comes up, perhaps he'll be able to answer some
But
of the
that's what
questions.
I'm trying to, I mean,
part of it
That's
is
a tough place. That's a real tough place to.
it's a very
and I
tough place.
understand.
So
I
I
understand.
love that street. The reason why I have two little children, they're 7 and 3-year-olds. Reason why I moved there, because it's beautiful neighborhood. They play outside, as the rest of my neighbors explained. And why would you want to take their childhood memories away? It's very important. We're very lucky to have that street, and let's please keep it that way. And I'm very concerned about the gas leaks. The area where they actually fixed my gas leak is already sinking in. It's actually right in front of Robert's house. The whole part where they cut the street off, it's already sinking in. So, I mean, if we continue this heavy trucking, God forbid, it can be explosion, and the whole neighborhood will go down.
Sure.
So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Betty Glazerbrook, and I live at 18 Eustis Street. I've been there 9 years. We moved there 9 years ago. It was a beautiful neighborhood, and the last 2 years, it's been nothing but a nightmare. I call it the truck stop. There's nothing but trucks all over the street, every day, 24/7. Big trucks. I have pictures of trucks in front of my house. Would you look at them? Would you look at this truck? This is what the neighbor next door that Tom was talking about, that is running a business from his home. These trucks,
Is this a truck from the
His bus-
construction? This is a neighbor?
No, this is a neighbor.
Okay, all right, that's a separate issue. I think we're more concerned, if I might speak for the board, I think we're more concerned with the
But I'm just saying,
construction.
we already have these trucks, and then to
Yep.
boot, we have the other trucks coming
Sure.
in. And, you know, it makes no sense to keep, in front of
Want
my
to talk
house.
into the microphone? I'm sorry, they can't hear you.
In front of my house last year, there was a pipe burst from all the heavy traffic, all these trucks coming back and forth. And there's a big patch in the street, and that looks like that's sinking a little bit. And it's just, you know, there's trash around the street now from these trucks coming down. Flatbeds, they back all the way down. I look out, these little neighborhood kids are out there, and I have heart failure watching because these trucks are just flying down the street, going backwards. I have someone who lives in my house who, he's very ill. He can, you know, he walks very slow, and every time he goes out there for a little walk, because he can't really go anywhere, he's very ill. I have a heart failure because I have to worry about these trucks backing down, and he won't get out of the way in time. They fly down that street backwards all day. It's horrible. And the neighborhood has just changed. It's bad.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I'm Stephen Smith, 25 Eustis Street. We moved in a year ago. I have 2 daughters, a 3-year-old and a baby. The street's great because the kids play in the street. It's a nice, quiet street. That's why we moved in. This development would destroy the street. It would completely change it. And they don't need our street. They have Route 1 access. They do not need Eustis Street. The situation with the trucking, there was some activity recently when they tore down the house, the remaining residential house on the Revere side. I caught some of it on YouTube. Every time I heard a truck, I went running outside to film it. I've got a YouTube video of a tractor being pulled on a flatbed truck down our street, an enormous, it's not, what are those things called? Excavator. But the situation is where it is right now is that Mr. Donano is at complete liberty to send heavy trucks down the street when he wants to. And so it's not intermittent. It's at Mr. Donano's and Republic Properties' will. It's whenever they want to send heavy trucks down the street, they can. And when the last summer when they were bringing up the street, there was about a month's worth of heavy trucking going down the street. So who knows? And if the construction wherever it gets started, we can pretty much guarantee it would be nonstop. And it doesn't matter if they have a gate or not. If it's at their will, it's at their will. I think that we need Saugus's help on this issue. It's going to ruin the street. They have other access. They don't need our street. So it can be explored. It doesn't matter. It's intermittent. It's at their will. It's at the will of the people who own this enormous commercial development. Explore closing the street on the Saugus side. That would be ideal for the residents.
Madam Chairman, you just said they have other access. They have other potential access, or are there actually streets other than Eustis that get in there?
They have Route 1 access, don't they?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. They don't have access off Route 1?
Not entirely yet.
Not at this point. That's what they're working towards. Unfortunately, this is one of those, it's a situation that I don't think that Eustis Street is going to be something that's attractive to them at all. It's the Route 1 that's what makes the value to the property is the access through Route 1. But
maybe we ought to help them move up their schedule of events a little bit.
yeah, well, Robert has been in contact with them and also with Revere. So, Again, I'm the messenger trying to find any legal way that we can do this. But there's certain requirements that they're required through the Department of Transportation, as well as what we can do legally, and we're trying to find any legal way we can to preserve that ahead of time, preemptively, and that's the challenge.
Is Route 1 not considered alternative access to the property?
Not at this point, and like I said, Robert can speak more on it, but my understanding is there are some restrictions of the roadway there being able to access through Route 1 at this time, but they are going through the channels to make that happen. That's what they want. They don't want access through Eustace Street. At least that's what we're being told.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, you and I had spoken about a week ago when you were going to send down some engineers to the end of Eustace Street, because when Mrs. Deborah and I had gone down there, there is what looks to be, and I'm sure you folks will concur, there does look to be a couple of areas where there is potential sinkholes. If these trucks have caused this damage to these streets, then it's our responsibility, regardless of the fact that they crossed into Revere to conduct their business, it's our responsibility to go after those folks on behalf of the people that live on Eustace Street. Have there been ongoing dialogues advocating for the people on Eustace Street? Have Saugus officials been going down and making certain when you're putting these stress fractures in the road, when you're having these sinkhole effects, when whose gas line is breaking, when whose overhead electrical wires are being pulled down because of the manner in which they were hung in the first place, I'm just making assumption here that how much of this are we actively pursuing to Revere, that yes, you're using our streets, much to our chagrin you're using this street, and it seems to me that we're between a rock and a hard place, but in the meantime, you have an ultimate responsibility to correct the problems that you created in the first place. Is this something that you're addressing?
Yeah, this is something that we've documented, and we have a timeline as far as the police have been down there numerous times, the building commissioner, as well as DPW documenting, and we're putting that together, and as we spoke last week, what we're going to have it analyzed as far as if the engineers can determine if that has to do with normal wear and tear of the roadway, does it have to do with something else underneath, or is it contributable to the heavy trucking? And then once we have that kind of documentation, that'll put us, I think, in it's still a fight, but a better position to at least some recourse possibly for the town and the residents.
When you say you're going to be, it takes a little time, what is the time frame that you're looking at to see what the causation is at the end of Eustace Street, where again it does look like there's some serious depression in that road and there seems to be a water retention? This is November 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the potential to the street down there if indeed there is a problem, if there's a leak underneath the surface and that's what's causing the problems?
I'm told by Public Works as well as the building commissioner that they don't believe there's any water lines or anything that would cause a leak in that area.
They said there were not?
There were not in that area.
Madam Chairman?
Mrs. Depp.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and I certainly want to hear from the rest of the residents down there. For the members of the board and Madam Chairman, I do have a motion at the end of this discussion to address the issues that you're bringing up with inspectional services, DPW, our water and sewer department.
Okay.
So that should be addressed.
Thank you. Sergeant Van Steensberg.
Sergeant Van Steensberg, on behalf of the police department, I just wanted to jump in here and kind of echo a couple things that the town manager has said. First of all, the police department would like to do whatever they can to help the residents of Eustace Street. And right now, our hands are tied being able to enforce anything down there because without an engineering study completed, we're not going to be able to get anything passed through the state. We tried it on Bristow Street just recently, and they rejected the no heavy trucking because an engineer study wasn't completed. And one of the drawbacks that the town manager has stated is that because of the intermittent trucking that's going on, when you actually do that 24-hour study, if there's no work being done, then you're not going to have a count of heavy truckings coming down. However, I do want to point out that the study is not just a 24-hour look at the traffic that comes down. There's actually a whole bunch of data that gets put into the study that's submitted to the state. And a couple of the things that, that I just wanted to point out, and this just comes from the Mass Highway puts out the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and that's pretty much what we go by when there's any type of changes to roads or signs. And a couple of the other things that that it has to be included in the data of the engineering study is that a physical characteristics of the condition of the surface roads and the sidewalks for the actual road and for alternative routes has to be submitted. So I know there's a lot of talk, and I'm certainly not an expert, and I could look at the roadway, and I don't know whether or not there's structural damage or not, but there's an area of that study that we could explain the current condition of the road and potential future condition of the road. There's also an area, data that has to be provided with the engineering study that says it has to be a written statement from the municipality as to the need for the exclusion. Well, certainly, the Board of Selectmen appears to be in favor of doing whatever they can to help the citizens, and there's quite a bit of residents here that do feel like there is a need. So just because a traffic study might be done in a 24-hour period and there may not be any trucking down there, doesn't mean that it would be an invalid engineering study to submit to the state. Now, I do believe from the information that I've heard is that Eustace Street is temporarily being used till other alternative routes can be constructed. A suggestion would be to put the engineering study together now with the information we have, to give it a shot with the state, and whether or not it helps now, if the exclusion can be granted at some point, it's certainly going to help for the future. So if there is any type of building or construction down that road and there's some type of development, if we get an exclusion now, based on the information we have, we don't have to revisit this later if they want to start using that as like a backdoor access to the property. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Sergeant Van Steensberg, my only concern is if they do the study and there's no traffic, how's that going to look to the people adjudicating it? Exactly. Well, my point is that there's part of the study requires that there's a written statement from the municipality of the need for the exclusion. Okay, so in that, it can be explained that there is intermittent work, that at the time of the study, they're in between work. Okay, so it could be, so you're not going to have all the data, but it has more than you're just not submitting a 24-hour, It almost
segment.
sounds like it's not intermittent. It's certain times of the year where the traffic is more steady than other times of the year when there really isn't much at all.
And that's what I'm saying. In that study, you can have a full explanation of that, as you know.
How do we document the amount of traffic? I mean, Bobby, I'm sure Bobby's not out there with a camera all day long counting the number of trucks, all right? Maybe you are, Bobby, I don't know, but
I mean, the alternative to wait till the construction picks up and then go out there and do it. But again, like they had said, you have to wait for almost the damage to be done before you can do anything. But so.
All right,
Madam
thank
Chairman?
you.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a quick
Selectman
question? Sergeant Van Steenberg, over the course of the last few years, have there been any traffic hearings regarding Eustace Street, signage hearings, any type of hearings or recommendations regarding the street from a traffic standpoint?
There have been, and from my understanding, going through quite a bit of them, is that at some point, I believe signs were posted. However, they were never approved by the state. So the problem is that they can't be enforced by us.
Thank you.
And that's what we're stuck with
Thank
now,
you.
is residents looking at signs saying, well, why aren't the police
So there
doing
were
anything?
public hearings, there were determinations made, and then you're saying the state did not accept those
from my
actions by the
understanding-
Board of Selectmen?
No, what I'm saying is from my understanding, I don't believe a full traffic study has ever been submitted to the state. I have never seen a completed engineering study submitted to the state.
Thank you very much.
So it's almost like it never's been tried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Any further questions of Sergeant Van Steensberg?
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Panetta?
Thank you. If we waited for the engineering study, not that I'm proposing to wait, but if they did wait until the more traffic came, and then we would have to come, have a vote, how long would that take?
Honestly, I'm not sure how long. I mean, the actual, you'd have to have an engineer come out and view the condition of the road, and to put together something that has an alternative route, or at least potential alternative routes, and then it would be a 24-hour period of monitoring the traffic, but I'm not sure how long any of that would take.
Madam Chairman, just on another note, I think the other challenge, and, we can try whatever, which direction you want to go. The other challenge is that, part of the language, and I'm sure he understands, is that you have to have a reasonable alternative route. And at this point here, to be approved, we don't have a reasonable alternative route. And that's part of the, criteria to be approved. We could get a condition of the roadway, but, and maybe what I can do is have a discussion with CDM, and find out if there's some partial study that can be done, because I think based on what is there, we're not going to be able, it wouldn't be approved, but maybe we can do the roadway condition and whatnot, so that would be completed and ready, or whatever they think is the most success for us to move forward. It might be good to bring them in on the fold.
Could I, Madam Chairman, just follow up with one question, either to the town manager or Sergeant Van Steenberg? Is Eustace Street a dead-end street?
No.
It is not. Okay.
It's not.
It is not.
I'm sorry? So it is legally a dead-end street?
It's not.
It is not. Okay.
Part of the problem, and I know we've talked about this before, and this will segue into what I'd like you to do, if you would, Mr. Manager. The property up at Waylou's, which is also a piece of property that this gentleman from Revere has purchased, when that property was developed, the owner of the property at that time agreed to deed all of the paper streets that led up to that piece of property to the town of Saugus. Mr. Manager, would you please be absolutely certain that that restrictive covenant is still in place over in the city of Salem? Because there seems to be some questions out here, and I don't know where this information is coming from, that there is going to be a change in the topography of the hill at Waylou's. The Waylou's Hills is coming down. That's not going to happen, according to what I can recall from the plans back when Waylou's was built. It could impact Griswold Street, it could impact Hayden Road, Norman Road, Hood Street. You can't be putting fear factors into people, and I'm a firm believer, and I'm sure the board members will agree, whatever needs to be done from this angle to help these folks out when it comes to Revere, that's our responsibility. So you need to fight for them and fight for them hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Cox.
Mr. Cox?
Hold on, Bob.
Turn. Microphone's right in front of you.
Members of the Board of Selectmen, congratulations. My name is Bob Cox. I'm newly returning to the town meeting from Precinct 4. I'm probably the only one at this meeting right now that sat through the entire history of Caddy Farms. I was on the Board of Appeals when it was filed as a 40B, and I attended every meeting, which in some cases over the 2-3 year period was twice a week. So there was a lot of activity on this, and I'll tell you, everyone on that board wanted to turn it down. But the way 40B was written, and I believe still is written, I don't know if it's, I haven't dealt with it recently, was basically it puts the town on the defensive. If we turn it down for almost any cause, they can turn around and revert to their original proposal and get it cited by the state. So then we'd have no input. So we became a negotiating board on the part of the town, and we did not want to have any impact on any of the communities, the neighborhoods in the area. The land is bordered, oh, by the way, the point of that 40B is moot because the permits have expired and they're no longer extendable from what I'm told. Now, there was a lot of information that was gathered. And for those who are not aware of it, the property is landlocked. We've got the railroad on one side, we've got private property throughout the Revere side. I believe there was talk of taking a house to create a Revere access, and this is going back maybe 10 years, a Revere access, but the street itself would not hold up to any traffic. It was a very small street. So they made Eustace Street the access. They wanted that all along. And we had a traffic study done. It's in the records for that 40B hearing. It was based upon residential housing, but a traffic study was done which included the cost of trucking to build it. And we were looking at taking out a lot of stone. We also, I believe we had a baseline study done on the street, the condition of it, and also the hydraulics under the street. We had the sewage checked. We had problems with sewage pressure and water pressure there. It was determined that they would have to replace a valve or connector at the corner of Eustace and I don't remember the other side street, but it's runs parallel to Essex Street into the neighborhoods. Whitney, thank you very much. We also, we looked so far as to try to put a buffer in. There was one house that actually closed it off. For the most part, they owned the land, as I recall, by taking. In other words, they took it by, they were cultivating it, they were taking care of it for so many years that they went to court saying they own it because no, it was abandoned to them. That also went to court, and I believe they lost the case, but I'm not sure of that. The point I'm trying to make is that the 40B hearings that we held back in the early to mid 2000s has a lot of information for baseline study that you'd be wanting to look at. We looked at the hydraulics of Armitage Park, Armitage, Anapaca. I'll show you how far I've been in the district. What would be the effect of changing the water level there and how they were going to dispose of it or address it. So there was an awful lot of work done, and that was not a brief study. That was 3 years. We did not dismiss any residents from coming before us. We were supporting the residents, but our hands were very much restricted by the law. We gave them a permit, and the permit was based upon a great deal of restrictions. The restrictions included the maximum weight of vehicles down Eustace Street, the speed. We required them to put curbs. There's no sidewalks on Eustace Street. We required them to put sidewalks in with granite curbs to protect children going from school and to home. It was a very extensive project, and all that was, that, by the way, was done by the builder. He had to negotiate. That was his giveaway to us in order to do this. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I've been against this all along. I live in the neighborhood. I was even worried from the standpoint of Essex Street being impacted, because this was a lot of trucking. And we tried to address it the best we could, and I suggest that you go into the records of the hearings, because right now you're taking my word for it. 10 years ago, I'm giving you the best information I can. But I know it's there. There were minutes, there were reports. As I said, for the sewerage, you could use that as a baseline. You've got traffic studies, a number of things. The only thing is it was for a housing development and not a whatever they're putting up there. I've heard several rumors. But anyways, just giving you a place to point and try to give you a little history of what happened. Okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
You could state your name and address,
Hi,
sir.
good evening. My name is Edward J. Harrison. I live at 34 Eustace Street in Saugus. It's quite a bit of information he gave you. That's good. That's the good research that you really need. I've lived there for 27 years. I can tell you stories that goes on and on. Bobby and I get together a couple of, I think about 6 or 7 months ago. All of a sudden, but boom, they're using dynamite. I said, what? Up in the quarry where he's building a new thing, he's using dynamite up there. I've seen trucks come down. I've seen the truck drivers stopped out there. I've seen them urinate in the street. I've seen kids come down, truckloads, carloads after carloads in the summertime. Go back in the fields, have a fight, big wall, all kinds of stuff, drugs going on. They had to call in the state police 5, 6, 7 times they've gone there. That is nothing but a Wild West back there. They can do whatever they want back there. No jurisdiction whatsoever. A gate might help. Yeah, a gate probably 45 foot high is something in London. But I'm telling you, what goes on there, you don't live there. I've lived there for 27 years. My friend Jimmy, Bobby, we've all lived there. We have to deal with it. I've seen them dump gasoline, the trucks out there. I've seen them throw gasoline into the sewers. I've seen diesel fuel dumped into the sewers early in the morning, late at night when nobody's around because nobody's there to watch them. That's all I have to say. I could go on and on. I don't have enough time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Schultz. I live at 32 Eustace Street. I'm also the one who used to own the property on Muzzy Street that I ended up having to sell to Mr. Donano. I grew up at the end of Eustace Street, and when I left, came back to Saugus, I purchased a house on Eustace Street. Not the same house, but I ended up with both. It's just, you're looking at Pandora's box, and I understand the board's hands are remotely tied. I understand the town manager's hands are remotely tied. There's only so much you can do. This is a democracy. What I will suggest is you don't need a traffic study down there. You're not going to find anything with a traffic study because there is no traffic until they start to do something. By the time you get everything in order, they're done with their project. What you need to do is you need to look at the structural integrity under Eustace Street, and it's going to require core drilling. I understand you've had test work done on the sewers, but nothing like what you've done elsewhere in town. We've had zero presence down there looking at anything under the street. The street is caving in. It was not caving in prior to the trucking. Now, the trucking you're addressing mostly is Mr. Donano. Probably a good 60% of this trucking was the result of Mr. Procopio, who I understand is an upstanding citizen in town, but he's also a businessman. He rushed in there to put the Muzzy Street extension in, but if you look at all of that from a legal standpoint, Muzzy Street doesn't actually touch Eustace Street. Eustace Street is a dead end. We got it declared a dead end, and if you look at all the maps and send your surveyor down there, you'll find that Muzzy Street doesn't actually touch Eustace Street. Muzzy Street comes down out of the back lot that the church has. It's lots A and B if you're looking at a map, and it cut across the front of the property that we owned down there on Muzzy Street, which was 50 Eustace Street. Cut across the front of there and went over into the Caddy Farm development. All this was established in the 40s when they subdivided that giant farm. All this stuff can be found right here in town in your historical society. The farm was all owned by a woman, by a family named Hatch, and it's huge, a lot of history with them. When they subdivided all that land, Ruth Hatch was the last member of the family to own all the property, everything. As she sold everything off, she had volumes and volumes and volumes of documents and pictures and maps and everything you could imagine. When she died, she donated all to the Saugus Historical Society. The stuff's on your property. It's right here in town. You have the history. You have the maps. But again, you really need to look at the structural integrity, because when they subdivided all that, Eustis Street was all wetlands. Oh, I'm sorry, it was all wetlands. And you really can't, back then there was no regulations for putting roads in. Way down the end of Eustis Street, you had a governor that lived in the big house with the Japanese maple in front of it. He was in office for like 2 years, and I don't know what his problem was, but he ended up leaving. He took his stagecoach down Eustis Street. It went down what's considered Muzzy Street, which is a private way. It's not a public street. Revere doesn't acknowledge it. It shot out through Whalus, the old Whalus out there, onto C1, which nobody here would remember, but there was a rotary, and C1 you could get out that way. And that's how he got back and forth to the State House. Saugus was his summer home. All this, again, is in the Saugus Historical Society, and you've got plenty of information to correct the flurry of other maps and stuff that are being put out there that everybody's looking at, believing Muzzy Street comes onto Eustis Street. It doesn't. I wouldn't suggest you putting a breakaway bar down there like they're talking about. He has one at the end of Laurel Street. Somebody unlocks it every now and then, breaks the lock off, whatever. Call Mr. Donano, he'll tell you about the wonderful dumping that happens on the rest of his property when they open that breakaway bar. We have off-road vehicles getting stuck in the woods, tune of about $500 per tow job. They're destroying the wetlands out there. They're getting in from Route 1, right up and over the hill. It's just, there's a lot of other ways in there, but his way on and off the property for trucking, anything he's going to do, he's going to have to make some type of access as it is. The road they just put in there temporarily over this, well, not temporarily, they put it in as permanent road. There's no actual permits were filed for putting in that road, but that road won't tolerate their heavy trucking. So in order for them to bring trucks in to do what they want to do, they're going to have to beef that road up. Well, if they're going to have to do the work to create the access down Eustis Street, then go create it on one of the other 7 inlets onto the property. There's a number of roads on and off that property. But I really do think that you need to look at the structure of Eustis Street. As I say, it was built on wetlands, and in what Mr. Cox was mentioning, he was mentioning a valve that was put in up one end of Eustis Street. About middle of Eustis Street, somewhere around 22, 24, from there all the way down to the Revere end of Eustis Street, that's all clay. The entire bed is clay. My side of the street, the clay is about 3.5 feet down. My neighbor across the street, the clay on her side of the property is only a foot underneath her property. So you build a road on top of clay and you run a heavy truck across it, it's going to sink, and that's what's happening. The result of that is the sewer line that's underneath. The sewer line never was able to meet the pitch because of ledge. If you walk to the end of Eustis Street and look where my parents' house was, which is the house that was torn down, look at the ledge that's there. Follow that ledge. I mean, you remember, you studied all this in school, how this worked with the glaciers and everything else. That ledge comes down to Eustis Street, and it's about 3.5 feet under the end of Eustis Street. So the sewer line wasn't able to be put in at the proper pitch. So the neighbor at the very end of Eustis Street has to have 2 check valves on his sewer line to keep the town's sewer from backing up into his house. But this doesn't show up on reports or anything like that. It's there. You could dig a hole and go and look at it. But the pitch of this isn't correct. Take that pitch, take the clay, keep running trucks over it, and you're going to end up with millions of dollars in damage under there that the town of Saugus is going to end up footing the bill for to fix it, because you're not going to leave all the neighbors on that street with no sewer and no water because you've allowed trucks to go back and forth because the traffic study has said, you know, there's really no need to look at the road. It's not a traffic study that you need. Lastly, I want to just mention the police presence down there, the town official presence down there that we keep hearing, we keep hearing the building inspector's been down there, we keep hearing the DPW's been down there, the only person I've seen down there has been the dog officer, and he uses it for a rest stop. That's all I've seen. I'm retired and I'm home all day. I see everything. I've been out in front of my house for the past 3 months putting a fence up. For those of you who think I'm slow, it's a very difficult fence. there has been nothing going on with people coming down and looking at this. The DPW truck came down today loaded with 55-gallon drums. The two guys sat at the end of the street in the hole that's there from what appears to be a water main leak, and they just kind of turned around and drove off. Nothing. The neighbor down the end of the street, when he backs out of his driveway, I'm surprised he doesn't lose his exhaust system because the holes are getting deeper and deeper and deeper. My neighbor across the street from me, nice elderly couple, they have a lawn level with the street. So the gentleman we heard about earlier, who was running commercial vehicles out of his yard, has his trucks come down the street, they turn around on the neighbor's lawn and go back up. This neighbor over there is bearing the brunt of the water that's supposedly not leaking under the street, so his basement's constantly filling full of water, and he's got pumps working overtime. So does his neighbor across the street, so does the neighbor next door to me, so does the woman across the street. But it stops at me. So if I'm not getting the water and the 4 houses next to me are, it's where the clay bed's rising. I mean, it's common sense. But as for the police presence, we don't see the police down there. We don't hear the police down there. We don't anything with the police. I installed security cameras on the perimeter of my house. We've got hypodermic needles all over this project, these bicycle path they put in. We've got people selling drugs down the end of the street. We can watch this all night long. Kids line up. They wait down there at the old depot. The car pulls up. They do their business, and all the kids disperse down there. These are all things that just constantly happen. Eustis Street is ignored. At least that's how I feel. It's ignored by the town of Saugus, and I'd like the town of Saugus to take an active interest, come down, spend a little time. If the town manager wants to come down, he can sit in my dining room all night long, and we can talk and just watch drug deals and look at the things, and we'll talk about trucks. I'll take him for a walk in the woods. Anything you want to do. But you can't sit there and just look at the report of some person who doesn't live in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Brown.
My name is Bill Brown. I'm now a town meeting member from Precinct 6.
Congratulations.
When I was younger, a long time ago, probably about 50 years ago, I guess now, I used to hang out with some kids down on Eagle Road in Saugus, just off of Route 1. I think the other street that connects it is Wren Street. We used to hang out down there. And when our parents used to make us go to church, we used to go down that trail from Eagle Road and come out through Eustis Street. There was a connector right to Eagle Road, all the way to Eustis Street. Halfway down there, there used to be a dog kennel, and they used to store the dogs for Wonderland, and they used to utilize Eustis Street to get to the kennels. I believe at one time they've also used Eagle Road to come in and get in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's passable for a four-wheel vehicle to get in there. But I sympathize with these folks from Eustis Street. I don't want to see the trucks in there. I don't want to see anything else going on in there. I took a walk in there and I couldn't believe what I saw. But they have my full support, but I felt that I should at least get up and give you a little bit of history on that. We used to call it the trail, and it used to connect Eustis Street to Eagle Road, and there was always something we did down there. And I'm almost positive that from Eagle Road in Saugus to, I guess the halfway point where the kennels used to be, I think that was passable for a four-wheel vehicle. So you may be shutting off one end, but you may be opening up another end. So you might want to take a look at that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Madam Selectman, how are you doing? My name's Tom Lavasco. I live on 23 Eustis Street. And I happen to drive one of those trucks that we're talking about, the earth crunches, they call them. I didn't quite understand, Mr. Town Manager, what you were talking about as far as having access or a fence, I believe it was. What was it? Can you tell me what it was?
One of the discussions with the developer is they're considering putting in a gate that would eliminate access to down into Muzzy Street.
Really? How long do you think that gate will last? Really, for one thing, you can't have trucks on that street. In front of my house is a sinkhole, and just recently, in the past 2 years, with all the trucking that's been going on in the street's falling apart. I've been there about 15 years. We've asked to get it hot topped, cleaned up. Well, we can't do that because there's work going on down there. First of all the dirt and the fill that was being put in there was illegal. And they didn't even have a permit to put it in there. They went from one town to another, so they bypassed the permit, right? And as far as this, we need the limit on that street. We can't wait until this project starts, a traffic survey. We need to have it done now. You're talking, you says, oh, we're discussing with Revere what we can do. We don't need any discussions. We need it now. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
My name's Christopher Trahan, 1 Clifton Street in Saugus. I think that this issue is bigger than just Eustace Street. It is all of the streets in that area, including Whitney, Mount Vernon, Laurel, Clifton, Avon, and a few of the other streets in between Lincoln Ave and Essex Street. The current detour that's going on Lincoln Ave is a huge litmus test for what will be when they do eventually develop the Caddy Farm. There is so much traffic going through Clifton Street, Laurel Street, Mount Vernon, Whitney, and even the end of Eustace. People are screaming explicatives at each other. They're speeding down the street. There are no posted speed limit signs. The sidewalks are inadequate. They do not meet ADA guidelines. It's a huge infrastructure problem that the town needs to address, even if they were to never develop the Caddy Farm. I had said to one of the patrolmen on detail duty that we needed some police officers down there to just even for speed checks. The town could have the coffers overflowing with speeding tickets right now. If you put an intensive enforcement traffic area in that area between 9 and 5. You cannot get out of your driveways. Children are not safe. Like I said, there are no sidewalks on many sides of the street. Clifton Street does not have any sidewalks, except for 3 houses. It begins nowhere and it ends nowhere. But it is a huge issue. The town hasn't adequately addressed the concerns of any of the residents, and it does, like I say, this issue expands beyond Eustace Street, and we would definitely not want Laurel Street to be opened up into the Caddy Farm either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Dill, 21 Laurel Street. I'm going to basically reiterate what Chris just said. It doesn't just concern the residents of Eustace Street, which have big problems, and they're a dead end. This construction going on Lincoln Street is affecting Clifton, Laurel, Mount Vernon, and there is an entrance right there to the farm. And I just want to say that I hope you can prevent any roads going through there. We don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly. You would kindly give your name and address, sir.
Good evening, folks. My name is Tony Chanker. I live on Clifton Street. Half my house is in Saugus, the other half is in Revere, so I've been to quite a few of your meetings, and I go to all the Revere ones, and if I'd known this 12 years ago, I wouldn't have put $500,000 into a piece of property that I thought was a beautiful side street with not much traffic and beautiful woods behind me, and it's just been a nightmare. And as far as anything happening with the developer, I was down at Revere City Hall last week. There's nothing on the plans for them. And I was actually seeing their attorney today, for Mr. Donato. There's nothing on the plans, and they have a project, I don't know what they're thinking about doing, but they were granted for an RB district to an industrial district at the last meeting we went to, with the only stipulation that the only way they could get onto that property is through Saugus at Route 1. And that's the only way they could get in, not through Eustace Street, not through Laurel Street, not through Clifton Street. That was the why they gave them that grant to change it to industrial. And I guess industrial covers everything, housing, stores, hotels, factories, or whatever it is. And so the only way they could actually get in there is through Route 1. But for some reason, I think he has plans of using Eustace Street and Laurel Street if he can get permission to open that gate up and cross the bike path and blow the mountain down or whatever he has to do to level the property to make it feasible to build something. And so until that happens, it's going to be a long project, and it's going to destroy our streets. And if I had my way, I would just tell them, like I think Revere actually told them this, you cannot access our streets. You have to come in off of Route 1 if you want to get onto your 30 acres in the back. And that's the way it was left off. So if you close your streets, he's going to have to spend the money and come off of Route 1. It may cost him a little bit of time and effort because it's the congestion and the time and stuff that he's going to spend getting there. So it's a little bit of an effort for him. But if he has something in mind, if he's buying away, losing all this and that, and he's got something up in his mind someplace. And I remember many years ago, my son is a builder, and he works one of the #1 builders in Boston. And they had a plan that they wanted to sell it to a 55 community project. And this company came down from New Hampshire, another one, which is up in Peabody. They came down and looked at it, and they thought it was a great idea, but he was talking $5.5 million, $6 million, $7 million, and the price to buy the property just didn't think. But I kind of thought it was a nice idea because I could sell my house and live in a 55 community and still be in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and it would be a nice idea. It would be less traffic, less cars, and be a lot of people would just bust in, and most have the facilities right there on site, but he didn't want to sell it. And but as far as I know right now, he's going to have to come off of Route 1, and he's going to have to come to you people because it's Saugus, and you're going to have to grant him that access off of Route 1. So he'll stay off of Eustace Street, Laurel Street, and Clifton Street. And so hopefully that'll be the way it'll go. And I know where the church is, it's in Revere at the end of Eustace Street. But at the last meeting I went last month, that's in court, land court now, because for some reason the church foundation was built on top of bad fill, and then it was built without a cease and desist, and then granted a new building permit on top of one of cease and desist. I don't know how they did that. So it's still in land court. So when that comes out of land court, I don't know if they're going to take that foundation down or not, or start all over, or what they're going to do with it. But there's been an awful lot of traffic, and so you're spending $900,000, I think, on Lincoln Street to improve your property, and it's going to be destroyed with trucks coming in and out of that end of town. So hopefully they'll just go to Route 1 and leave us people on our side streets alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your name, sir?
Stephen Horlick, 6 Bacon Drive. Just to give the board a little history, when we had our last meeting approximately about a month ago, I asked for a report from the building inspector, which we do have on file, about the water, because the concern of the board was that if you're going to build property and cause adverse effects to other people's property, including Anapaka, you have to be held responsible to mitigate that. And there is a report, if you contact Joe Adebato, he did give it to me about a month ago, and it shows that at one of the meetings that there was a determination by the engineer of the planning board that that street could not take the abuse of any heavy trucking. It was not built to the specific grade, or the composition of the road could not take heavy trucking. So if you contact Joe Adebato, he does have that report. And going back 10 years, Selectman Dever and myself sat on the board, and we had a Fairmont Ave project that came in, and they wanted to use Fairmont Ave. So what we did is we met at Kings Lynn several times, and we beat that group in Lynn that was going to put 127 units, I believe it was, on Fairmont Ave, and use 2 entrances that's what they wanted to do, and we stopped them and said, you need to get all of your access from Lynn, and that project was eventually shot down because we refused to give them access to Fairmont Ave for a project that was going to be in Lynn. So there has been some type of precedence in the past that we have set, as the selectmen have in the past, to stop these projects. But check with Joe. There is a report out that says that road cannot take any type of heavy trucking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horlick.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Manager, I guess I'm still getting used to that, huh? Do you think that, is Mr. Luongo here? I have not seen him as of yet.
Yes.
Mr. Luongo, is there something that you'd like to address to this? Would you like to address this? Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening. Let me just tell you what I know of the project and what we're trying to do. We have been in contact with Mr. Donato, Joe Donato. Matter of fact, as Mr. Crabtree said, we met with him and his brother in the manager's office a couple of weeks ago. They had indicated that they had just recently bought the Wales property. I believe they passed papers on that sometime in August of this year. So they basically have just started now to start planning on what they want to do there. As you heard from Mr. Bob Cox, the 40B project in Saugus does not have a valid permit anymore. The last time they were extended 3 times by the Board of Appeals. The last extension was granted in July of 2009, which expired in 2010. There was state legislation passed twice to extend permits in Massachusetts that were issued by boards and conservation commissions, planning boards, boards of appeals. This was during the economic recession. Those 2 extensions, which give 4-year extensions to any permits in effect, do not apply to 40B projects. So the 40B project died in the Saugus side, which has, in that area, there's 3.9 acres of land that's in Saugus, and that not counting the Wales property. That property is zoned industrial 2 right now. That's the heaviest industrial zone. So anything that the developer wants to do down there would probably have to come before town to request a zoning change if they can't do what they want to do under an I2 zone. We don't know what they want to do. They have not indicated to us yet. Again, they just bought the property, the Wales property, which will give them access to their larger property in the back. They have said that they would inform us of the planning process that they're going through. They're assembling their team, their real estate people. They want to figure out what the market is for different type of uses on that property, the whole property, and then hire planning and architectural experts to come up with a planning process. We have indicated to them that we, the town of Saugus, want to be involved from the beginning in that planning process. We don't want to be involved after a plan is developed and then we're faced with reacting to it. We want to be there in the beginning so we can be proactive in the planning process. We have opened up communication with the Donatos. They seem very receptive to it. We did ask them about the gate. Originally, they agreed to put up the gate at the end of Eustace Street, but then Mr. Donato called me back and said, because they're in negotiations with the church to buy that property, they feel that they cannot technically cut off access to the church of their property, that it could create problems of potential adverse possession because now you're denying the church access to their property. He said once they conclude their deal, he would be definitely willing to secure that site between Eustace Street and Muzzy Street. I've met with a couple of the residents down in Eustace Street a couple of weeks ago and listened to their concerns, so it's a learning process for me. But what we can say right now is certainly we, the town of Saugus is going to protect the interests of those residents, not just on Eustace Street, but all those side streets that butt up to that property. I feel we're going to have a lot of leverage in this process because part of the Wagel's land is zoned residential, part business. Clearly, I don't think the developer wants to use side streets to access that property. And we're going to be there during that whole process to really make sure that there's no negative adverse impacts on those residents in Saugus. So what we got to do, make sure, is we communicate with these residents all the time, because there's an old movie, Cool Hand Luke, remember that? What we have here is a failure to communicate. Well, we're not going to do that. And Mr. Crabtree has asked me to almost be the middle person between the residents and the town. So any complaints that you guys have, certainly call me. I'm in town hall, down in the accounting office right now. But I could certainly be the facilitator of any issues they have and make sure Mr. Crabtree is aware of them and get those issues directed to the right departments to resolve it. So we don't know yet what they're proposing, but we are certainly going to be involved with it. We're going to be proactive. That's why I think I was hired. That's why I think town meeting, created this position to be proactive and to try to get resolution to issues. So we're going to be there for the town of Saugus. Clearly, part of my job is to get economic development. Part of my job is to make sure we protect the residents and the quality of life of Saugus. So open to any questions, a lot of concerns. I don't have those answers tonight. I can tell you, Fred Veroni and I have been down to the property, and we did go inside and look at the church foundation. I did call the chairman of the Conservation Commission from Revere. There were concerns about fill. He said that he is not aware of any fill, illegal fill that's taken place. They had to get their permits from the Riviera Conservation Commission, and Andy DeSantis is the chair of that Conservation Commission in Riviera. And he says, as far as he knows, he is looking at that property. He's concerned about what happens in that property, and he would notify me if he thought there was any issues with illegal fill in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Longo, what I would suggest, the members of the board, I'd run it by you. You're saying that communication is the most important thing. These people, there's several of them here this evening. That seems to be, in all our lives, communication seems to be the biggest issue. Can you please speak to the residents of Eustace Street? Maybe they want to pick one or two, whether it's Mr. Camuso or anybody else, that would be their liaison. You would be liaison for the town. Even if you think it's minute, send the information forward in an email, because what I found being down there a couple of weeks ago with Mrs. Dever is that there is that level of frustration when neighbors feel that they have issues pertaining to their homes and their properties, and they've forwarded the information many, many times, and then it seems to have a dead...
Absolutely.
So we want to try to avoid that moving forward.
Absolutely.
Again, keep the lines of communication open, even if it's a picking up of your phone or just throwing him an email and saying, just want you to know, haven't heard anything as of late. But I would like the communication kept much... Absolutely. And when we know something that's going on with the developer, we'll certainly communicate it to whatever, however they want to, designate some people that we can work with down there. So there's no... We got to try to be transparent in this whole thing and get this done. Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Camuso? Are you comfortable with that, or the residents? I understand that, but... Well, as far as the street itself, Mr. Manager, you're going to go down and have that checked out now, correct? That's the correct. Issues that we discussed immediately, those will be checked out now. And then you have the long-term issues about the property development. But in the meantime, if you folks want to communicate with one another as to whom is going to be that liaison for you with the town versus having... I'll just give everybody an email, and everyone can get on an email group and get it blasted out. But I think it would be helpful that if you folks have one or two people that could speak for you, that would be very helpful for your cause as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add? Thank you very much, Mr. Longo. Yes, ma'am.
Debbie Lloyd, 19 Anawan. I think that's a great idea to keep the Eustis people informed, but living on a dead end that abuts that property, I too want to be informed. I bought my house because it was on a dead end. There's a sign on the street that says it's a dead end. I don't want anyone coming through. So I'd like to see some type of communication where the entire city gets involved and we all get to hear the results. Because the only way I found out about this was through Facebook.
Okay.
So I don't really think I need to know from Facebook what's going on in my neighborhood.
No.
You know, I mean, I think those phone calls that you guys blast for school are great, but, you know, I do have a 12-year-old. I live on that street so she can play on the street. Anawan Ave is right behind Anna Parker.
Right.
Anna Parker is a swamp. That swamp comes into my property. I have a sump pump in the front, I have a sump pump in the back. You know, I had a year that I was sick for a year, and I got a very nasty letter from the town telling me that my sump pump wasn't hard piped to the street, and I got fined $50 a day.
I've heard about those letters.
And I got to tell you, I have my pump stretched out to the street. Anyone with an eyeball can tell that I wasn't putting it in the sewer.
Sure.
So I was a little frustrated, and when I called the city and said, you know, it's going to look really nice when, you know, Hank Philippi Ryan finds out that, you know, you have someone that just had major surgery and can't move and is a single parent to a 12-year-old.
Then why don't we take it a step further? Why don't you walk your neighborhood for Anawan Avenue, relay those contact informations, perhaps you could be the liaison for Anawan, Mr. Camuso can be for Eustis Street or whomever, you can get someone from Hood Street, you can get someone from Hayden, you can get someone from Whitney, Laurel, and you can, in today's technology, just get the information out. The last thing that I think people want to hear is, boy, I talked to them about 6 months ago and I didn't hear anything back.
Exactly.
Madam Chairman?
Thank you.
Deborah.
Before you leave the podium, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for coming this evening. One of your town meeting members, Steve Sweezy, is at the back of the room, and I believe he's taking everyone's email addresses, so I think that would be a great start. We're not going to be able to solve all of these issues at once, but we can certainly try to incrementally address the issues that you've raised, working with the town manager and the town departments as well.
And I think you brought up a great point that, you know, you hear all these stories, you know, oh, they're going to break through every single one of the streets, so you don't really know what the truth is.
That's right.
So at one point, you know, a week ago, we found out that Hood, Hayden, Anawan, every one of them, Eustis, they're all going to be broken through and be cut-throughs. So, you know, being informed is part of the problem, part of the solution, I think.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
Mrs. Panetta.
One other suggestion. On the town of Saugus, the Economic Development Director does have his own page on the website. We may want to think about having a folder specifically for that area, so any sort of a news flash or more information, he could post that on an ongoing basis to make sure that everybody is kept informed.
It's a great idea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else anybody chooses to bring up?
Madam
Selectman Castanetti.
Done a lot of talking tonight, but where are we in terms of the traffic on Eustis Street? What's the next step?
Mr. Manager.
I would suggest that we have CDM go down and take a look at it sounds like, based on some of the background information, that the street itself, roadway, probably construction-wise, was never, done in accordance with probably what you would need down there, and then added with the trucking. Looks like, there could be some structural, I think having them look at that and give a report on the structural.
When can we get that done?
We can get it done
We've been
within.
trying to set up a meeting with CDM for a couple of months now on another issue, and nothing's happened.
Mhm.
I don't want to wait 2 months. They've waited long enough.
That's right.
We need to get something done very quickly with CDM.
Madam Chairman, if I might, I do have a motion this evening that I hope could set a time frame and get us the information that we need. I was hoping, if I could, Madam Chairman, to make a motion this evening to request that within the next 14 days, our next meeting, that the DPW assess the integrity of the roadway, that the Water and Sewer Department look at the drainage and the sewer sufficiency, that inspectional services address the concerns regarding contractor yard in the neighborhood. And certainly the town manager wishes to bring CDM in, which I think will be helpful. That will get the ball rolling. In the meantime, we can certainly take the valuable information from Mr. Cox and get the baseline study, so that would be my motion. I think 14 days is a reasonable amount of time to have the contractor's yard or the commercial equipment in the neighborhood addressed, to have DPW take a look at that very poor condition of the roadway, the drainage, the sewer sufficiency. It's all very visible. Again, we're not professionals. Our inspectional service and DPW are. They're a genuine concern. So I think that 14-day window. The only thing that does concern me is, as we wait for the developer from Revere to make his plans, I don't think that we should wait. I agree with Selectman Castanetti that we need to really be proactive. I don't want to wait for the developer to lay his plans at our doorstep. I think we need to really look at the effects of this project that have already occurred, but more importantly, all the money we've spent on Lincoln Ave and are spending on Lincoln Ave. It's like throwing money out a window as these trucks come up and down. So that would be my motion.
Madam Chairwoman, is there any legal recourse that we could have to at least temporarily shut down that road for trucking until we can do the research?
Certainly, you could request an opinion from legal counsel, but I don't think there is. I think that it's still considered a taking, and it would be adverse to the town to do that, but, we can ask for a legal opinion with that.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion before us? Motion seconded? Excuse me? We have a
What's that?
motion before us.
Did you
Selectman
second it?
Deva, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Not on this. I just want to see it move forward as quickly as we can get it done. So that motion should go a long way to get something moving in the right direction.
Sure.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'm very happy
2
that
weeks.
we're moving forward with this, because it is a shame this neighborhood has come before us so many times over so many years, so I'm glad that we're taking action to move us forward.
Right. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind the members that I know
You still have something else on the agenda.
Can we take a
Don't
2-minute
you?
recess, Madam Chairman?
I'm sorry?
have a
Maybe
couple of
take a
things.
2-minute recess?
Okay. I don't think so. Okay. Recess for 2 minutes?
Just 2
Sure.
minutes.
Be in recess.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're still on citizens forum. Does anybody else have something they'd like to raise?
Nothing on Saugus Concerned Citizens?
That's it. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to be brought up, was there something you wanted to bring up, sir?
Yes.
Okay, we haven't set the parameters for public comment. That's okay. Come on up and tell us what you need us to hear.
Hi, I'm Brian Costin.
Right.
30 Susan Drive, Saugus, Mass. Newly elected town meeting member from Precinct 7. I wish to congratulate all of you on your victories last Tuesday. Also, I'd like to thank the outgoing members for their many years of service. The reason I'm here tonight is, like many of you, I spent some time campaigning around Saugus. Myself, I was in Precinct 7. And I noticed in the North Saugus area, the signage, the street signs, none of them meet the American with Disabilities Act, or a lot of them don't. Even like Alfred Road, Spring Street, Brandy Way, Manta Terrace, and then up off of Route 1, Hawk Street, Walden Pond, that whole area there. It's all the old signs. And if you've ever traveled that area, it's quite hard to navigate sometimes. Some of the streets are interrupted. And anyhow, I took it upon myself. I called the DPW. I didn't speak to Jimmy Waugh, but he got back to me. We played telephone tag. And the message he left me basically was, there is no list of the streets that are completed or uncompleted. That's what I was looking for. And in the past, they were doing it in a geographical manner, and it seems to me like they probably started over in the Revere side and worked their way towards Route 1. And as we all know, we had cutbacks in the DPW and probably some money cutbacks. So for some reason, it stopped, and it seems to have stopped right at Precinct 7. And since I'm newly elected, and since I did receive some concerned questions from the folks in Precinct 7, I thought I'd ask you folks if possibly you could look into getting it placed back on the agenda of the DPW. I know I hear we have a new manager coming in, and it's not a pressing issue, but it's something I think should be addressed, and I would appreciate it if you could do something about it. And I know you can't say anything to me tonight about it, but perhaps in the weeks to come you might be able to give me an answer as to when the problem might be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Any further business? Motion.
Can I make give you a couple of handouts? Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay. Jim Tozo from Bike to the Sea asked me if I could just give a couple announcements this evening, if it's okay. One is they're having their annual dinner. There's a potluck dinner at St. Margaret's Church, and that's November 16th, and he wanted me to make sure that I invited all the members.
Yeah.
So there's a flyer. I'll put flyers downstairs as well in Town Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last thing he wanted everyone to know is that there is a grant that Saugus got for $116,000. Bike to the Sea submitted on behalf of Revere and Saugus for construction of the rail trail. Revere, in addition, benches and a kiosk in Saugus. And he's having a ceremony at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th, and he wants the DCR commissioner to attend. Unfortunately, I'll be at work. I can't go at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but he wanted to make sure that I let all of the board members know. If you can make it, he would appreciate it.
Where is it?
I'm sorry. It's going to be down at the Tussle, he said at the Saugus River, the Trestle Bridge off of Lincoln Ave behind O'Brien's.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can, he Facebooked me this today. I can email it to all of you,
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are we doing members' comments?
I don't have anything on here for members' motion, but by all means, if you have something you want to bring up.
I just want to thank everybody that came out yesterday for Veterans Day. I think we had probably the best crowd that we've had in a long, long time, not just people that were watching the parade and enjoying the ceremony, but the veterans themselves. We had a huge number of veterans that came out yesterday. It was a great day, and again, just want to thank everybody that came out, and I especially want to thank the Veterans Council, all the members of the Veterans Council that contributed to the success of the ceremony yesterday. So, last question. Mr. Manager, when you introduced the ambulance contract a couple of meetings ago, I asked for the savings, the police chief, the fire chief, and you all alluded to, and I still haven't seen anything on that yet, and I'm wondering if I can get that fairly quickly.
Sure. I thought that was sent over to your office, but I'll check on it.
Okay, I didn't get it. If it was sent over, that's great, but I haven't seen it.
Madam Chairman, if I could just
Mrs. Devon.
follow up on that. Maybe I misunderstood the email we received today, but that there was not actually a contract reduced to writing, that there was a proposal that was presented, and so I had emailed back that it would be nice to have the highlights of that proposal. So whatever you have, Mr. Manager, would be helpful. Thank you.
I think that this issue should be put on the next agenda, Wendy. Okay? That's probably the best approach to take. Let's put this on the agenda to be discussed. Is there anything else the board members would like to bring up?
Can I mention one more thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Saugus River Watershed Council is having a Comedy Night. It's a fundraiser, and it's going to be Sunday, November 17th at Prince Pizza, and I'll leave flyers downstairs, but I have flyers for each one of you as well. I know we're all busy with fundraisers. That 'tis the season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you. The only thing I would raise to the members is just a reminder that we have until, I believe it's next Wednesday, to sign off on the open meeting law. We have to get that into Joanne Rappa. It's the last page in your book on the open meeting law.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by the chair. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.